Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Check 1 2 1 2. Commissioner Douthat, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, Kurt.
Excellent. Thank you.
I can't see you yet, but I can hear you.
Commissioner Douthat, you can see the graphic up on your screen though, correct? You might have stepped away. Sure he can.
are you? was on the phone earlier. Commissioner Douthert, are you there?
Yes.
I'll let the record show that Commissioner Douthert is present for the meeting.
Okay, first on our agenda is clarifications to the previously discussed issues relating to ordinance 2020-17. Will our city attorney take this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, first of all, I will read the title of the ordinance. This is ordinance number 2020-17. An ordinance of the City of Madera Beach, Florida, providing for ballot titles, ballot questions, and text for proposed referendum questions to be placed on the November 3rd, 2020 election ballot, providing for amendments to the charter that the qualifying period for candidates seeking the office of mayor or district commissioner shall be the first full 2 weeks in December, that any district commissioner who desires to become a candidate for the office of mayor shall resign his or her office 10 days before the qualifying period, that any candidate receiving the highest number of votes cast in an election for an office shall be elected to office, and that if 2 or more candidates receive an equal and highest number of votes for the same office, that those persons shall draw lots to determine who shall be elected to the office, that the term of office for district commissioners be changed from 2 to 3 years, and that the term of office for mayor be changed from 3 to 4 years, that the effective date of the new terms of office shall be March 9, 2021 for district commissioners and March 14, 2023 for the mayor, that independent audit provisions that are inconsistent with state law shall be deleted, providing for election date, providing for coordination with the Pinellas County Supervisor of Elections, providing for effective dates, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict. And Mayor, as I believe you all know, that this ordinance has already been through the commission numerous times. All that is happening here are 2 very small changes. The first is that the words Pinellas County is being inserted in front of the word Supervisor of Elections in the ballot language because the Supervisor of Elections suggested that. And then the only other change is originally, I believe this provision was, the provision says this charter amendment would amend subparagraph B of section 3.3 of the charter to provide that any district commissioner who desires to become a candidate for the office of mayor shall resign his or her office, and I believe it was originally put in as 7 days before the qualifying period begins, in order to meet the requirements of the Florida statute. And so we have since become aware of a Florida statute that says we can't do any shorter than 10 days, and so that's the only other change here, is that we're bumping that up to 10 days. Otherwise, it's the same that has been before you all before.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion amongst the commission on this? Is there any public comment on this?
Mr. Mayor, we didn't receive any electronic versions of the public comment.
Okay. City Clerk, will you call the roll?
You need a motion. Should we make a motion?
Yeah, that might help.
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance number 2020-17.
I'll second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Douthert?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
Let the record show the motion carried 5-0.
Okay, next on the agenda is Gulf Beaches Library Agreement, October 1, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. As the commission knows, their budget was presented to us. It was sent back. The same budget was presented to us again. So that's where we stand right now. City Manager Daniels, would you like to fill us in on what has transpired since then?
Sure. After our meeting, I sent a letter to the library director, Vince Gadrix, and explaining the action that the commission had taken at this time, recommending the funding of the library at $70,044, which amounted to a 25% reduction in the amount that was originally requested by the library. And basically, the concern that the Board of Commissioners had in reference to the Capital Improvement Fund. I explained in the letter the action was taken because, we went through COVID-19 and have some revenue drops and some other concerns, and we're still in COVID-19, so we're not out of it yet. So the board was taking a conservative approach, and we're looking at doing other things budgetarily to take that conservative approach, and we were asking for concessions from the library board to do the same. And I think that was the message that we gave Vince originally when he was here in front of us. I believe it was back in June. And I sent that letter. I think all of you got a copy of it. If not, I have extra copies here with me. And on August the 7th, that was sent July 21st, August the 7th, I received a memo again. I believe that's in your file as well, but it's a file from Vince basically acknowledging the letter that I wrote on the 21st and also stating the fact that he had a board meeting of the trustees for the library, and they met on August 6th and reviewed the letter and our recommended funding for the library. And then it also said that in his letter that in spite of the fact that funding commitments of the 5 towns have been approved by the library board on May 18th, which I believe we were under the impression this occurred in March, but he said the meeting went May 18th, and that approval required the representatives of all 5 towns. And go on to state in the next paragraph that they sent us a service agreement, which is part of that documentation that was in his budget that he had submitted to us, and that the agreement and the interlocal agreement from back on the 12th, the library board decided that they were going to look at the 4.1 of that agreement, which we rejected the service agreement in by taking our actions, and otherwise fails to fund or insufficiently funds the library, then that municipality is terminated from the agreement at the end of the current fiscal year, which will be on September 30th, 2020. In accordance with the terms of the agreement, the library does not have the power to grant a reduction in Madeira Beach's annual funding commitment. If Madeira Beach fails to fund the library in accordance with the contractual obligation, then as of October 1st, the residents of Madeira Beach will lose their library card privileges in all Pinellas County libraries and will each have to pay $100 annually to reinstate those privileges. We hope that you will consider your position and continue your support to the library. Yesterday, I met with Vince in his office, and I explained to him that none of the BOC is against the library. We've been very supportive year after year of the library. We love our library. It's just the financial situation that we're in right now caused us to take that action. I also, hearken back to his presentation here in front of the board and the expectation that the board had that he would come back with some type of recommendation. And, you know, I had met with him after that meeting and had explained to him that, you know, come back with something. At least go to your board and talk to your board about it. And he chose not to. Basically, if we continue on the action that we have, we don't want to terminate the agreement, but they're terminating it for us. And I do have Mrs. Morales here from the Pinellas Public Library Consortium? Cooperative, sorry. We also have an interlocal agreement with her organization on a countywide basis. All individual cities that are part of a library are part, I think most of them are, if not all of them, are part of that interlocal agreement, which is, I think you all got that one as well. It's like a 36-page document, I believe. But it basically reads similar language that they require for the funding to occur and the funding in full of what they decide. I guess the issue that we look at is our interlocal agreement that was done in 2012 really requires, you know, library kind of can set the tone, you know, for our taxpayers. And, you know, they, according to that agreement, they can decide what they want us to pay, just as long as they follow a formula, which they did by population. And I also met with Mercy, and we did that telephonically through Zoom, and, you know, I kind of got the idea of, you know, what happened on the meeting on the 6th, and I'm sure she's here and she'll answer any questions on that meeting. I did ask for, under the public records through Megan, I asked for the minutes of the meeting back in May that they had, and also the minutes of the meeting that they had on August the 6th. And Megan was told that the minutes weren't done yet, they weren't completed as yet, so they're not a public document. So,
Mr. Mayor, real quick, before we jump ahead, we have Mercy right here. Let's find out what the library's stance is. I mean, she attended the meeting, she spoke to him directly. This way, before we get into what I know some of us want to speak about here. You know, Mercy's on our side, and we're not choosing sides, let me restate that. Mercy's our liaison, along with Marilyn, and she was part of this meeting. So let's not speculate on what went on at the meeting. We are more than privileged to know exactly what went on at the meeting. So Mercy, if it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to invite her up.
No, that's fine. I think that's a good idea, Doug.
Oh, it says not to touch it, but I'm a little short. Is that okay? The IT guy's going to come get me. Or gal. So Mercy Roberg, Madeira Beach Library Representative to the Library, Gulf Beaches Library Board, also Madeira Beach resident. So yes, I had a great productive meeting with City Manager Bob yesterday through Zoom, and we have a recording of it if anyone wants to go back and view it. That's available. As you all know, Vince came in, did his presentations, and then sent myself and Marilyn to the next workshop meeting, where we came, and I definitely asked for a letter, because I knew I've been on this library board, and I was like, we need something in writing, because the talking back and forth, and Vince didn't have any authority to move the budget, because it had already been approved. So Madeira Beach wrote a very good letter. I told Bob, I thought, it says it's a recommendation. You all asked for consideration, and at the library board meeting, some library board members thought it was an action, that you all were breaching the agreement already. And I looked at the language and said it's a recommendation. Madeira is asking for this. There's not been a breach yet because it's an ask, right? So there was great conversation on it. There was heated, I will tell you, I did not expect to be on a library board where there was heated discussion on this. And at the end of the day, they said, you know, I advocated for the 25% reduction. I advocated for all the cities. I said, this is a 5-year plan we need to be looking at, because it's not just today what we need to look at for COVID revenues. We need to look at the economy as a whole. And I said, you know, we need to really, really look at it. And the other city representatives were not interested in giving Madeira a reduction. Some cities said that their coffers were quite full, and so there was no issue. And we can get the minutes. I asked for them again today. I sent an email to the director of the library, and I said those minutes should be done within 48 hours. I do not think that we should have minutes from May that have not been published or written up. And so, and I included city manager on that because I said, if they're telling him he doesn't have the minutes, that's not right. So I advocated for the reduction because I think that 70% would be, or 70,000, I don't know the exact number, would have been fair during COVID, and leave the other cities to figure out what they wanted. So there are, I believe the board consists of 9 representatives, and they did not want to have a reduction for Madeira. And so that's when they voted to write a letter back to the city of Madeira Beach. And the intent of the letter, from what I understood in the meeting, was to articulate the options to the city of Madeira Beach. And so they had the library attorney review the options, and that's what was written back to the city, so that way Madeira could understand sort of what options were available at this point. So I think Madeira Beach still has choices to make. I don't think that there's really been a complete action because the city, and there's my understanding, has not passed the city budget yet. So I think that today is a great time for everyone to talk about it. I recommended to city manager that he have Attorney Trask, review it. If the library's brought their attorney in, the city should make sure their attorney reviews the documents too. And city manager had already passed it on, so that was good. I will tell you that the other cities were not interested in giving the reduction. There was probably a good hour of conversation, and I felt like I had to talk them down a ledge, but I'm the newbie on that board. So I wish I had the minutes so we could see which cities, the vote was unanimous, I believe, to pass the letter on. And I did vote to pass the letter back because I said the city of Madeira has written a letter and we need to send a response. So ask me any questions.
So, Mercy, I will tell you, I have spoken to several other mayors. 2 cities are on board with Madeira Beach, and a third one is talking about moving to St. Pete Beach. So to say that we're the only ones is simply not factual.
So I think the reps, the library board trustees.
Their reps may be saying that, but they haven't gone back and spoken to their mayor and their commission. And it's something all the commissions will need to address. I really don't have any questions right now because I've seen the letters and the back and forth, and I know how I feel on it. I can't answer for the rest of the board, but it's kind of hard for us to tell all the employees of Madeira Beach, you're not getting a raise this year because we just lost $700,000, and some losses will probably continue with this continuation of the COVID-19. And so it's hard to justify giving that amount of money to the library, and in fact an increase over last year, when our own employees are getting no raise. And we've got to be fiscally responsible and watch our budget. And that was a very small request to make, I think. I see fat in the budget for the library. Y'all are cash heavy. And to see even more money going into certificates of deposit and see some of the money that's being spent on things that the library needs to come into the 21st century, and it's not doing that. And when I see on there buying DVDs and CDs, and I know at the house, and I'm on a budget, I don't have cable, but I still get Amazon and Netflix and all these other things.
Mayor Hendricks, people do check out the DVDs, so that's, we can definitely.
Well, we ask for a list of the people in Madeira Beach that are members and also a list of how frequently they use the library. It's something that would be very good information for us. So we would like to see that, to see how much usage the city is really getting, because for me, I think we were generous at $70,044. And I know the other cities are not willing to pick up what the library will lose should Madeira Beach be pushed out of the library.
I also have a question.
Sure.
Was there any discussion by the board of taking that $95,000 for the addition and postponing it to next year and letting all the towns off the hook for that one line item? One line item out of 32 is all this town objected to, right? And I don't think that amounts to rejecting the service agreement. I don't think that amounts to failing to fund the library by just saying one item out of 32 we can't participate in, right?
So Commissioner Price, there was discussion on that, and that's the part where I had to talk them off the ledge. They were not intending that money for an expansion. They were intending that money so that, I guess the parking is not ADA compliant. There's some backdoor safety issues. And so we did at that
completely counter to what Mr. Gadrick's told us.
So, and I was not here when the director was here, so I can't speak to that. I can only speak to the board meeting that I participated in. Yeah. And so one of the things at that board meeting, the chair of the board, I believe, asked for an itemized list of what repairs would be done with that $95,000. So I have not seen that list yet, but it is supposed to be, it was supposed to be an RFP put out for it, so we would know exactly what that money would be spent for. And the things that they listed that were discussed were ADA compliant parking, because I believe that is out of compliance, which is a big issue. And then there's a back door that needs fixed, and then there's plumbing that needs fixed. And if anyone's done house repairs, you know, it can add up pretty quickly. So there was that request for that, and we could definitely ask for that. The library usage, absolutely. I think that, you know, we can see what Madeira, how many Madeira Beach residents use the library. I hope everyone here has a library card. But just so you know, I mean, I completely agree with, it's a reasonable request to ask for a reduction. I was shocked when I went into that meeting, and the other city reps were, the other cities and their board, the Board of Trustees, were not as interested in helping, you know, Madeira and the other cities. So at the end of the day, I think, you know, I can give a couple ideas and recommendations if you want, but I think that Attorney Trask, if he's reviewed it, would probably be the better person for that.
Okay.
Okay, I do know another place they could cut is that they've got, I think it's $480,000 in CDs right now. And in this budget, they're planning on putting another $50,000 into certificates of deposit.
So, and that money had been pulled out from those CDs to do some improvements that they were not done. So that's why it's going back in, and that is not city money. That is, city money is for operating expenses, not for capital improvements. And so I'm sure you can get that in writing from Vince also, but they went through that discussion also.
So, well,
that's donated money from patrons that have donated in order to improve the library.
From what I see on that, though, with your cash reserves and the CDs, you're not in dire straits by any means.
And Mayor Hendricks, one of the representatives, said there was a thing in the Beach Beacon that said that Madeira was not in dire straits and had great reserves too. I did not see that article, but they said that too. So I was telling you, I was shocked at how many of those board members, and I don't know, you know, what the history is there, but they went right the legal route. They went straight to the agreement. And I think in times like this, you have to be willing to negotiate, because there is not, you know, like what we all want at the end of the day is that the citizens get access to the library. And so how we can figure that out, you know, I think we, you know, as me as a rep for the city to the board and you as commissioners for the citizens, you know, there's plenty of people that use the library, families, and many of our residents really, I just think that we can figure out, we're still in the budget deciding phase, you know, this isn't happening, you know, it's happening close in time, but it's not the end.
Yeah. So in true transparency, when I first read this letter, I called Mercy immediately just to find out a little bit of the background. So I don't really have a question for her per se. She knows my feelings on when I read the letter, I was a little miffed. It kind of looks to me, and I was joking around a little bit about it, but it was kind of like the tail wagging the dog here a little bit, or us being, the wording of it is just odd. I don't know Vince very well. I knew his predecessor from my work at the rec center, and I was expecting something a little bit, I don't know, the bedside manner of this is not well, or done well. I feel like we're kind of at the point of a bayonet here, where they're kind of barking out orders, and we've got to try to figure out what we're going to do. Now, here's the problem. The problem is the library is a good thing, and the citizens do enjoy it, the ones that use it. Our issue at this moment is we don't know how many that number actually is. We don't know how, how big of a part of people's lives this is. Now, on the other side of the coin, I, like the mayor, have reached out to a couple of other communities, and everybody's watching. They're all seeing what we do here, and, I'm not saying there's going to be any drastic moves, but my point is we made a request, right? And this is the one thing that Mercy and I spoke about. We made a request to the library, and this is the answer we get back from our request. I don't know. It seems a little harsh to me, but I hate to be the voice of reason up here. That's tough for me to do. But I was a little miffed by it. So, but I agree. I think we're all pretty bright people here. I think we can kind of powwow around here and try to figure something out. Whether we make a proposal back of, hey, we'll pay this year, but we'll take that number and double it, and that's what we'll pay something next year if they can't change the budget for this year. It's a game of math then. That's what we got to decide. Do we want to continue on it or we don't? And then if we want to continue on it, then it's a game of math and figure it out how we figure out a plan to present back to them. If we want out, well, I think they just told us we out. We don't really have to do much. So that's just my 2 cents, guys. Thanks.
Well, Mr. Daniels, you've tried to negotiate, is that not correct? And
yes, and in fact, even as late as yesterday, and I went over to talk to Vince, and he did invite me to sit down to talk to him. And then, when again, he's never brought up this whole issue that Mercy brought up about it not being, our money goes to operational issues, not capital issues. His letter doesn't address that. He's never said that to me or to this board. So when I started asking him about, the money that they're putting aside, he said, well, everything I wrote in this letter is here, and I have nothing else to say. And he went for the door to open the door, and I left. So now, it's to me, that's not the way you negotiate. And I've never seen him talk about negotiating something or trying to resolve something, but I did get it across to him that we love our library. We did not take an action, so we're terminating our agreement. That's far from it. I think each of us, and including myself, I believe in libraries. I might disagree with the way that we're handling our library, the way they're, they're not looking at the new technologies and everything else, but that's a different issue. And so I do, just so you're aware of it, Mrs. Morales is here, and she might be able to answer some of those questions on the users, because she does coordinate with all the other library directors as part of the consortium. Did I mess that up again? Cooperative.
Very good. That's
Sorry.
fine either way.
Okay. But if when you're done talking with Mercy, and, she's more than willing to come up and try to answer some of your questions as well.
And can I comment on that really quick? I think, well, I know that Vince can't negotiate without having another board meeting, right? So he has to have the board has to, just as you all have to approve budgets and do things like that, the library board, the way it's designed and set up, it's the same thing. So, you know, I talked to Vince today and was like, you need to send those minutes, you know? I was like, you can't hold back on minutes from the city. And so just as I come in here and tell you what I see at that board meeting, I go back and tell them the same thing. It was the other cities that definitely were, you know, not, they were like, these are the choices Madeira has. And so, I tried to have that conversation, because I think the other cities are watching. I'm sure Treasure Island is watching, you know, and, a city that doesn't have commercial business is not worried about their, revenue the way Madeira and Treasure Island would be. And so, some of those cities were like, well, we're fine with our money, right? Now that's today. In another year, if property values go down, that could definitely change. We don't know what we have coming as an economic, you know, as our economy. We just don't know. So I think that, you know, you have choices to make today, and whether that's more letter writing between attorneys and whatnot, or actions that need to be taken, or, you know, budgets that need to be looked at again. You know, I trust that you all will make the right choice for the citizens, and, you know, and...
One question.
Yes.
How did Marilyn Halfland vote?
I believe she voted to send the letter forward. The letter was not written, though. The motion was to send a letter in response to the city of Madeira. And so I voted to send a letter in response, and I believe Marilyn did too.
How did she stand on... My concern is that I believe we have a library representative that is not representing our town. She, in fact, is representing the library. And I think Ms. Havlin made it very clear when she sat up here and argued with us, you can't cut our budget 25%. You know, what other budgets are you cutting 25%? That kind of talk concerns me. I don't think we need unpaid volunteers voting to bind our city to contribute a lot of money, right? And then try to make us the bad guys and say no.
So Commissioner Price,
I looked at this letter, I call it a nastygram, and I'm ready to just say, well, I guess we're out of that. I think I'd rather take our entire $70,000 and see if we can get internet for the whole city of Madeira Beach. I mean, I would really rather see something like that done than, I feel like I was being extorted when I got this letter. And it wasn't just the letter. It was the fact that when Mr. Gadrix came up here and presented it, and our mayor asked him questions, wait, don't you have this much money in the bank? Don't you? I'm looking at your audit. You have 800, or you, I'm sorry, not you, library, and thank you for representing us, because it sounds like you really are. Thank you, Mercy. The library, Gulf Beaches Library, Inc., has $892,827 of assets with no donor restrictions. All right? I keep hearing, oh, no, that money was given to us for carpet. That money was given to us for windows, whatever, books. No, you've got almost $1 million here without any donor restrictions. It's right in the audit. So I don't care. I mean, you say we have money, you know, the library thinks we have a lot of money. We think the library has a lot of money. Say that's a wash. I don't like the tone of this letter. I don't like the way Mr. Gadrix came up here and walked off in a huff, won't negotiate with our mayor, sends you and Marilyn at the next meeting. We were crystal clear when we said, come back with something else. Come back. We don't like this one thing. Now the ball is moving. Now all of a sudden this one line item is for something other than an addition, right? So things are getting made up as it goes, and I don't know who's changing the rules here, but I'm frankly not impressed at all with it. That's all I'm going to say.
It's okay. I think, Commissioner Price, that, you know, the letter it's definitely, written and from my understanding, reviewed by the attorney, the library board attorney. So, you know, the letter, I think, we all get letters that we don't like the tone with sometimes, but, I think that the crux of it is just, there's choices that the commissioners can make today. And I don't know. I don't think actions have been taken yet. I think we're still in that deciding phase. And you know, the letter maybe could have been better written, and maybe a little bit more, you know, what options do we have? But I do think it's tough. I mean, as you all know, it's tough when somebody, you know, the director of a nonprofit is in a hard spot when they have a board that the board has to vote on that. And I think there's a real timing issue, and this is something if we stay in this agreement, and whoever is the representatives for the city on the board, I think there should be some clear processes. Like, you know, when the budget comes in for approval, before the city rep, the library rep votes on it, they need to come to the commission and say, here's what's coming up, how does the budget look? And it should be in line with the city's budget. So like, if the library's board is approved in May and you don't approve your budget till September, I sit on the budget review committee as an alternate. I saw all the cuts that Madeira was doing, and so I was able to speak to the library and say, Madeira's not joking, like they are cutting left and right, you know, and there's shortfalls. So I think that, you know, going forward, if Madeira stays in the agreement, there should be some processes and timelines in place so we don't run into this issue again, right? If you know, if the commissioners, you know, if I brought the budget to you and said, this is what's being proposed, how does your budget look, there would be conversation and room for negotiation. But the timing on this year seems to be kind of, not miss the boat, but I think that's what ended up, you know, going, that's why I insisted on, you know, when I came, I said, we need to write a letter because the board's not going to listen without a letter. The library board won't listen without a letter.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so.
Oh, I thank you for your work, and you're giving us the details, but you weren't here during the meetings that we had?
Correct, I was not.
I had to make that clear. We're not just a bunch of meanies up here.
And I told the director.
Worse, frankly, with the no negotiation stance.
Yeah, and I told the director of the library that, you know, I should bring the budget or either represent the city. I asked him, I said, do you go to every city and present? And he said, no, he goes to Treasure Island and Madeira Beach, and that's because of the larger portion. But, you know, in the future, have a process, you know. The library reps should probably go to any meeting that the commissioners have, and so you can ask the right questions ahead of time. And I think this one, just the timing really fell off the skids on it. And nobody could have predicted COVID, right? You know, I mean, at the end of the day, if everyone's on board with funding the library, it might have been a non-issue if we didn't have a budget issue in the city. And we should plan for that. And I'm hoping, I'll step down. We got another meeting coming, and if Trask, I don't know if Daniels or Attorney Trask has any comments.
Well, I was going to ask.
Oh, Mrs. Morales.
Come up.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you
Hi,
very
Ms. Morales.
much.
How are you?
I'm glad to be here. Is it okay if I hand out a packet to each?
Sure.
Okay.
You want me to hand it out for you?
Okay. Well, before we get into the numbers, I would like to talk about PPLC and the benefits to all the libraries that are members of PPLC, including the Gulf Beaches Library. The first one is a big financial benefit. And when we get into the financial page, you'll understand more. But unincorporated Pinellas County residents pay a tax to use the libraries in the county, and that money comes directly to the public libraries. So there is funding, and you'll see it on the library budget sheet as county funding. In addition to the county funding, there's state aid. And the state aid is managed by PPLC, but we do things like pay for databases, pay for delivery, pay for the ILS, which is the software system that the patrons use to find their books and reserve their books and check out their books and other items. So there's a long list of things that is paid for by state aid. Then there's resource sharing. So for Madeira Beach residents and other residents part of Gulf Beaches, if there's an item that is not held here locally, it can be gotten from any library in the county. So there's the resource sharing, and that is a very big part of what we do. We pay for the delivery. Every library gets delivery service every day of all the items that move back and forth. There's information exchange because the library directors meet monthly, and the specialty library staff meet as regularly as well, like the children's librarian staff, the catalogers, the reference librarians, the circulation folks who run the front desk. And then there are countywide services. So if you look at that annual report page, you'll see on the very bottom all the museum memberships that we've been able to develop partnerships with so that residents of Madeira Beach can go to those museums for free. And that's just one of the things that we do for the member libraries. Any questions about the wonderful services of PPLC?
One thing, if Gulf Beach's library boots Madeira Beach out, which it appears may happen, what do we have to do as a city to get involved in the Pinellas County libraries?
So you have two interlocal agreements that your city manager signs. I believe he distributed the 36-page interlocal agreement with the county for library services. And that interlocal agreement is for cities that support a library. So whether you have a library in your city that you support financially, or whether you pay into the cooperative a per capita rate. So if your population is, the rate is set every year by the average of what all the cities pay, all their expenditures. So this year it's $38. So if you have 4,300 residents in Madeira Beach, times $38, that's how much it would cost for you to be a member, for your city to be a member of PPLC, or you could reimburse the city residents. They would pay a $100 fee to get a library card, and then you would reimburse them $100. And so on this sheet, that we ran the numbers for active Madeira Beach residents with library cards. So these are not expired cards. These are cards that are used regularly. So you have 1,057 residents with active library cards. If they all got $100 cards, you would be reimbursing them at the rate of $100,057. So according to the budget that the library budget, that's a little bit more than what they're asking for. The really good news that I wanted to point out on here, and when I started talking about unincorporated residents paying in, so right now, if the library is asking for $93,392, that is per user, not per capita. This is not population formula. This is using the 1,057 registered borrowers. the city of Madeira Beach is supporting the library to the tune of $88.35 per current registered borrower. Again, not to be confused with the total population. But if you look at the unincorporated column, the next column over, there are 551 active unincorporated residents that have Gulf Beach's library cards. And the revenue for 2021 is $213,404 from the county, from unincorporated Pinellas County residents. And if you do the math on that, that's $387 per library card. So compare the $88 to the $387, and you can see that Madeira Beach is getting a pretty good deal as far as being a member of the library, the Gulf Beaches Library. And then when we look at the other cities, because there's 4 other cities that are make up the Gulf Beaches Library, there's 1,944 registered borrowers, which is 55% of the total. And the revenue that comes from those libraries, according to the library, those cities, according to the library budget, the average is $131 per active registered borrower. It's going to be up and down depending on which city you're looking at. So then the total column is highlighted in yellow. Then we have the circulation. So Madeira Beach residents are borrowing 16,000 items a year, and that does not include all the active database use and the electronic items use. That's just physical items borrowed from the physical building. Unincorporated residents are borrowing 11,000 items, and the rest of the people that use the library are borrowing 37,000 items. So here you have how many people from Madeira Beach are using the library and how much they are using the library. I'm so happy to take questions.
I have a question. Active library cards are library cards that have been used in the last 5 years. Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
Active, when you say active, we have 1,057 active library cards. Define that.
So that means people that are using their cards every day right now. We have the total library.
No, I mean, what's that span? I mean, I don't know anyone who uses their card every day, so. Right.
So let me tell you, the total number of library cards to Madeira Beach residents is 3,000 something. And that includes cards that have expired over the past 5 years. But that's not the number I'm giving you. I'm giving you the people that are using their cards now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what time span did you use when you say now?
This is as of yesterday. These are active.
How far back did you go to determine, I think I have an active card, I don't know. I have a card, I've used it within the last year. Does that make me active?
Yeah, well.
About 2 years.
It may have expired between the last time you used it and yesterday, in which case your number would not be on this page.
Why would my card expire?
All library cards expire every 3 years.
3 years.
Every 3 years.
That's the number I was trying to find.
But we do the purge every 5 years of inactive patrons with expired library cards because we are held to the state records retention policies.
Okay.
So we have to keep those patrons in the system, but they're in a different category. They're expired and inactive, whereas I'm just giving you the active card numbers.
And now I know active means someone who's used their card in the last 5 years, correct?
No.
You say they purge after 5 years.
Yes, but if they're expired, they expire every 3 years.
Okay, so if I don't use my card for 3 years, it expires, and I get a new one.
Even if you're using your card, it expires every 3 years. The reason why library cards expire, and this is all over the world, the reason why library cards expire is it gives the staff and the library a chance to update the information on that patron, if they have moved, if they have changed their phone number, anything like that. So it's a very easy process to renew your library card once it's expired. Okay. So I think we're looking at a bunch of different numbers. One is that the patrons with expired library cards are purged after 5 years of inactivity. Library cards expire every 3 years. So if you have a current library card that's not expired and you haven't used it in 2 years, your number is still going to be on this page.
Okay.
So I guess to answer your question very directly, this 1,057 is people who have not expired their library cards and have used them within the past 3 years.
Okay.
We cannot, I don't believe it's possible to run numbers on how many patrons used their card in the past month. I mean, we can do daily transactions, but not by patron, just like a total of daily transactions.
Thank you.
But even with this number as big as it is, you know, if the number were smaller, of course, then your per borrower cost would be a little bit higher.
Right.
But we trimmed the number down as low as we could get it within the parameters of the policies.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Your microphone, sir.
Commissioner Douthert, have you got any questions?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Morales.
Thank you for asking.
Mr. Mayor, one thing, I did have conversation with Mr. Trask, and I believe Rob's aware of that information as well, and just having his review of the interlocal agreement, and the way that it is written does put the power of determining the amount of money that we pay in the library board. And if the I guess Rob could probably discuss it if you have any questions as to a substitute interlocal agreement. Again, it would take all 5 cities to agree to the new agreement, but I posed that question to him just in case it came up in your minds.
Okay, and I also, well, go ahead, Rob, if you will, fill us in on that.
Well, Mayor, the agreement does operate in the way that it's been described. However, a couple things. First of all, the document is styled as an interlocal agreement. Interlocal agreements in Florida are entered pursuant to Florida Statute 163.01, the Florida Intergovernmental Cooperations Act. If you read that statute, it provides that the only entities that are even allowed to enter an interlocal agreement are public agencies. And so, you know, the first question I think that our office has is the library, which is a corporation, even a party to this agreement? I understand that there was a signature line put there for them and they signed it. I'm not entirely sure that a court would even say that they're a party to this agreement. It is really an agreement between the funders to fund the library. And so that said, if you look at Section 4 of the agreement, it says that if a municipality rejects the service agreement, in other words, rejects their take it or leave it number that they have thus far put forward, that the agreement is terminated as to that municipality. And if you drop down to 4.4, it says a terminating municipality may reinstate its participation in the library upon the execution of a new interlocal agreement, provided the remaining municipalities agree. So I think that, you know, my feeling, and I believe Mr. Trask and I are on one accord of this, is that if they are unwilling to go back to their board and revise their budget and bring it forward to that which that the city has requested, that pursuant to their own position that they have now given us, they're dropping us out of the library participation. Now, the agreement does not say, and I know that this is something that residents may be concerned about, users of the library who are our residents, it does not say that the library must kick our residents out. It says that they may lose their privileges. And so hopefully, if it comes to pass that compromise does not come from the library and the city does fall out, that the city does not penalize our residents by immediately freezing them out of being able to go and use our library. I did do understand from the mayor that he has spoken to other mayors and that there is interest among the group of funding municipalities to have a successor agreement. And I think our office is in agreement that that's the best way to go. It is rare for me to see, and as with Mr. Trask, I'm board certified and have a lot of experience with many different governments, and it's rare for me to see an interlocal agreement with so much authority being given to the funded entity as opposed to the member governments who are actually providing the dollars to help fund the entity. And there are some other governance issues as well in terms of proportional representation on the board, how those board members are appointed and removed, the transparency and the pre-budget participation that each of the municipalities probably should have, and it sounds to me like it has not been the way the library's been operating, and that kind of got us, I think, to the position that we're in. So it certainly is a policy decision of what you all want to do, but I think that we're at a point now where this board has taken its position of where it wants to be. You have heard from the library that it is not inclined to grant that numerical request, and so for all intents and purposes, unless they come back with a new budget, then the city will be out. And I think that my recommendation, or Mr. Trask's recommendation, would be that we try to get with the other funding agencies, maybe get their boards to appoint a representative, since because of sunshine, it's hard to do it as one big group, and get each representative from the funding municipalities together in a room, and let's just begin to draft a new interlocal that is more in accord with what we want to do.
To me, that's a good recommendation for the benefit of Madeira Beach. We put the offer out there to negotiate, but it actually was just turned down by the library, by Vince. So we've been told you can pay what we want you to pay or you're out. So I guess they're just dropping us out. I would like to see the $70,044 stay in the budget if they come back and change their mind or decide they want to negotiate. But I agree that I think we need a new interlocal government agreement so that we can kind of clean this up and so that we can have some control over how our money is spent.
Well, I agree. If the library right now has the power to dictate our budget, then I vote we get out of that agreement. I don't see how this is going to happen year after year. And the ball is moving all the time on this thing. No telling what. I don't know. I don't feel good about this agreement at all for my residents. And maybe we can do something in the interim, because I don't think we're going to get this thing hashed out with 5 entities by the time we're kicked out. But
I agree with the city attorney's recommendation. I think that's the way to go.
yeah.
there any public comment? Bob? Go ahead, Mercy.
Should I speak as, I'll speak as the library representative, also as a Madeira Beach citizen, Mercy Roberg. I think that it might be, for the sake of Madeira Beach citizens, a good idea, hopefully, to stay in the agreement, and there is some time to make those choices, as I mentioned before. I think that an option would be to stay in the agreement for this year, and then automatically move into those negotiations with the other 5 cities that the city attorney's firm recommended. And then also, Commissioner Price noted something, and I'm not sure if the attorney's office looked at this, but, you know, is there a definition for sufficiently funded?
Legal question, I would think.
I was very impressed that you picked up on that.
Yeah.
So I personally would think that, and I, you know, when we got to this point, because I will say, as a citizen, I do not want us to leave that agreement. And I think that there's a lot of citizens, 1 out of 4, it seemed, according to those numbers, would probably agree with that. And so, you know, I'm not sure if the city attorney would like to take a look to see what sufficiently funded is, because 70,000 may be sufficiently funded. And that's all I'll say.
Thank you. Bob?
Robert Preston, 425 South Bayshore Drive. I think I'm really angry at this director. And I think we need a new director as well as we need a new agreement. And we need to get out of the agreement. And I'm not going to go a whole lot further than that. But nobody should hold this city at ransom like this guy is here. He needs to go someplace else other than the library. It would be fine for me to get out of the library agreement totally, knock the building down, and build a garage at this point. That's how I feel. Thank you.
Another one.
Thank you, and I apologize for not identifying myself earlier. Cheryl Morales, Executive Director of the Pinellas Public Library Cooperative. First, I have to say that we use the same law firm. PPLC uses the same city attorney law firm, so we can't pull our attorney in for an opinion to give to you on the county interlocal agreement. So I will provide that to you. If the city of Madeira Beach withdraws from the interlocal agreement, all Madeira Beach residents would lose their library privileges immediately. So as a Gulf Beaches library card holder, my recommendation is to stay in the agreement for this year and then use the coming year to forge a new interlocal agreement that suits the city the best. And I make that recommendation for all 1,057 library card holders that are City of Madeira Beach residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I quickly address a point?
Sure.
Thank you. I just want to say, for the sake of Mayor and Commission, as well as any residents that may be watching, in terms of a suggestion of coming up with a definition of sufficiently funded and so forth, I think that this is not a circumstance where lawyers need to begin attempting to dance on the head of a pin. What is sufficient can be in the eye of the beholder. think that our firm is of the opinion that this interlocal agreement has deficiencies in it in terms of governance, in terms of records that each of the funding municipalities by right should see every year about what are our residents getting out of this. And so those things aren't really going to be solved by kicking the can down the road. And that's why I think, Mr. Trask and I feel that coming up with a successor agreement is really the best way to go. In terms of how long that would take, as you know, I just rolled up my sleeves and in 2 weeks got you a draft personnel policy. We can move very quickly as long as the other municipalities will send us, somebody to speak for themselves and get the thing done quickly. But that's my response. I just don't want to get into a situation where what my lawyer says and your lawyer says, we're kind of beyond that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion that we I guess that's going to happen in our budget. I'd say I make a motion that we explore the possibility of having a new interlocal agreement with the other 4 entities and have our attorneys contact them and see what can be done before budget time. If not, they've already given us the ultimatum, so I guess the motion is, to make it nice and clean, motion to direct our attorneys to amend or rewrite the interlocal agreement with the other communities.
If I could, Commissioner, ask you to well, that part of it is fine, but I think that, again, because of sunshine, because we are all partners here, the municipalities, maybe if your motion could include, if not the mayor, some other commissioner, be the representative from Madeira Beach in that effort, and ask the other municipalities to also appoint someone, because as a lawyer, I could draft it up fairly quickly. We need political representatives to say, yes, our town will go for this, our town will go for this, to be at that negotiating table. Okay. So I think it would help start the process if y'all will pick one amongst you to be the point person, so that our office can not have to wait for another meeting. I can go to the mayor or whoever and say, here's where we're at, so and so, let's get a meeting with the other representatives and not have to worry about sunshine issues.
Okay, I think we probably still, though, we need to vote on it first, and then we can address the issue of who's going to be our representative.
Okay. So I guess the motion is, I motion that we seek to enter into a new interlocal agreement with the other 4 towns regarding the Gulf Beach Public Library.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I've got a question. With this motion, are we topping the amount also with this motion at, 70,400, or what are we doing with the motion? I don't understand.
No, we're just making a motion to try to renegotiate or to negotiate a new agreement.
But
because the agreement that we have now, we're apparently going to get kicked out of.
But are we stating what we're trying to do with the agreement? Like a dollar amount or anything like that, I guess is what I'm asking.
No. Not at this time.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Price,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Andrews,
Yes.
Commissioner Douthard,
No.
Commissioner Hodges,
No.
Mayor Hendricks.
Yes.
The motion carried 3-2.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned at 6:25.
Yeah, 5.
We're going to take a 5-minute break before the next meeting starts.
This gets too muffled.
Going in or coming out? Going out. Which one? Is it still there?
Be glad you don't wear glasses. It is Wednesday, August 19th, 6:30 p.m. This meeting is called to order. City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Price?
Here, here,
Commissioner Hodges?
here.
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Here.
Commissioner Douthat?
Here.
Mayor Hendricks?
Here. Is there any public comment?
Good evening. I'm Doug Izzo with the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber of Commerce. I just want to explain my outfit today before I begin. We are doing everything in our power to help our members. Every week we are sponsored by a member business, and this week we just happen to be sponsored by Madeira Beach's own Hubbard's Marina. So we thank them for their, sponsorship, and we're happy to get their name out. They got a great operation going there at John's Pass. But the reason why I'm here tonight, I was asked to come here to kind of give you an update or kind of explain a little more about the email that was sent to you earlier in the week. Like I said, we've been doing everything we can to help the business community on the beaches here. But there's one portion of the business community that was hurt harder than others, and that's our bars and breweries, because they still are closed. I understand you got to do what you got to do to curb the spread, but, at no fault of their own, they're closed. So we're asking for some financial assistance, some kind of relief, something for them. And I know our beach communities, are doing everything in their power, and it's time to kind of expand that to our state legislature. So what we're doing here, we met with DBPR earlier, I think last week. We got our members in the meetings with DBPR to discuss opening the bars and breweries. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to happen in the near future. So again, is why we're looking for other alternatives. So I sent you a letter that we drafted that we're going to send to DBPR asking that the state, I want to get the state provide a 6-month abatement of bars and breweries license renewals. However, if bars and breweries are closed for more than 6 months, the abatement should apply for the whole year. So basically, we're just asking our local municipal partners up and down the beach to also issue a letter with us. We will collect the letters. Once we get them all together, we'll send them off to DBPR, and it's just that extra additional help that we can offer our local bars and breweries. And I know there are some municipalities that already waived their business license fees. I mean, a lot of people look at what we're doing step by step, and they say, well, it's not a big fee. Why should we waive it, But these little fees add up, especially when you're talking about these small family-run businesses. And, the difference that this could make could mean, an extra month in business. So I just wanted to answer any questions that you may have and hopefully get your support.
Well, if you and Robin are offering free labor, I'll get you some 7-Eleven T-shirts, and you guys can go take a couple of shifts if that works for you. I think this is a great idea. I saw Doug's message, and I asked him to come and explain it because I thought I got the gist of it, but now that he explains it, I think that's a great idea. If you guys don't mind, I'd actually like to throw that on the workshop. And is it just a form letter, Doug, that you guys are pretty much putting?
Yeah, I mean, we sent you what we wrote. You can add your name. You can write a new letter. Just that we know that we have the support from the city of Madeira Beach.
Yeah, I think it's great. Thank you.
If I may, if I don't hear any objection, I've already started crafting a response, a letter to get to Doug, because I think you want to try to get it up there as soon as possible.
Right.
So it's up to the commission, but if you don't have any objections, I'll continue along that and get a letter to them, or if you want to wait to the workshop, that's up to y'all.
That's fine with me, Bob. I think it's a good idea. I think we need to help the
Sure.
small businesses as much as we can.
Yep.
Well, great. Well, thank you all for your support.
Thank
Thanks for
you,
coming.
Doug.
Any other public comment? Do we have any emails, Bob?
No.
Next topic for discussion is 2020 actual projections and 2020 detailed budget. Andrew?
Great, thank you. Good evening, Commission. So in your agenda packet, I provided three separate documents. One was the FY 2020 actual projections. So this is the same documents that you received from me earlier previously via email and multiple spreadsheets. So it's now this that same document in PDF form, except what's included now is a column containing the FY 2020 actual projected, which I obtained from feedback from the various departmental directors to get an understanding of where we're going to end up for the end of the fiscal year for FY 2020. And that contains all the detail by revenue and expenditure for every fund of the city. Also then what's included is the FY 2021 budget detail document by department, by fund, et cetera. Very identical to what you were provided before in our previous budget workshop, with some updated information based on circumstances that have changed and deliberations that we've had with departments. So it has some changes from the previous budget that we'll go through in our presentation. And so speaking of presentation, that's the third document. That's a PowerPoint presentation that I want to walk through and kind of focus my time on, and walking through some of these PowerPoint slides that are addressing some highlights of issues by fund. And that's kind of what I want to cover with you all this evening. And maybe we can start there if you guys are okay with that. And then from there, we can delve into any specific questions you all have on any of those three documents or any specific account or fund, et cetera. And I've got, of course, an army behind me of our fearless department heads who, for any questions that I can't answer, of course, they'll be able to come up and do the best they can in answering. So if that sounds like a plan, let's delve right into the presentation. So first in the presentation is the lost fund. That's what comes from our penny for Pinellas dollars, restricted to capital-related items, which is infrastructure, which is governed under state statute under Section 212-055 on what we can spend these monies on. Historically, at least in the last couple years, this fund hasn't been very significantly utilized. And so there's been a buildup of fund balance over time to the point where per our audited financial statements at September 30, 2019, we're at $1.7 million. In 2020, in your 2020 budget for FY 19-20, the only budgeted items were a beach improvement plan resurfacing project that has not gotten off the ground yet. So we've had no expenditures on that project. And then in addition to that was payments to the debt service fund for a debt that originated in 2016, I believe, for the purchase of a ladder truck for the fire department. That, and then I think the last payment was about $98,000 principal and interest that was paid down in December of 2019, and then that debt has been completely extinguished. So there's no future debt service payments that the lost fund will be obligated to the debt service fund. So we have a buildup of fund balance here from the $1.7 million at 9/30/19, plus the projected change in fund balance of the $388. So where am I getting the $388 from? Typically, over the past, and you can see this in the FY21 budget, which has multi-year history, we've earned about $450,000 to $500,000 in penny for Pinellas proceeds for the lost fund. So that's about what we can expect in FY21, maybe somewhere in the 450 to 475 range, depending on how bustling the economy is and picks up in FY21. I think as I mentioned in a previous presentation, we did see a dip in our May collection down to about $24,000, and then in the June collection it picked up to $31,000. In our highs, it was in the high 40s to 50,000 range. So all in all, maybe gets us in the, let's think in the $450,000 to $500,000 range. The stark reality that we have is the general fund on its own really can't be sustainable long term and to be the primary funding mechanism for capital projects of the city of Madeira Beach relating to governmental activities, irrespective of our enterprise funds and even irrespective of the building fund, which is technically a special revenue fund, but it also has a buildup of reserves. But bottom line, the general fund really shouldn't be the funding mechanism for capital projects. So to the extent we have capital projects, we really should be looking at that lost fund in the foreseeable future to be funding those. Why do I say that? Because we've incurred significant debt in the stormwater utility fund for big stormwater projects, Crystal Island, Area 3, Area 5, et cetera. So that general fund is going to be transferring monies for the foreseeable future to the stormwater fund to help pay that principal and interest. And so unless we really want to deplete the general fund over time, we need to be looking at the lost fund to fund the vast majority of our capital projects relating to governmental activities. And so since the last budget that for FY21 that I presented to you, historically we had a lot of those projects in the general fund. So I'm now proposing that we move those into the lost fund, and that's what we have here on slide 1 and slide 2, where those projects that I propose would get funded out of the lost fund. And so if you get down to the bottom of slide 2, that gets us to a total requested capital outlay of $1,326,000. Now we only are earning about $450,000 to $500,000 in revenues annually, plus interest earnings on that available cash investment balance. But we would be bringing down our fund balance of the lost fund, and that would get us down to a projected fund balance at 9/30/21 of about 1.3 million, if you're comfortable with moving forward with these projects. One discussion item on this is we do have unused BP settlement proceeds. So if the thought of spending 1.3 million in a fund in a given year with annual revenue stream of, let's say, 450 to 500,000 plus interest gives you discomfort, we could identify one or more projects that we could spend existing BP dollars with. Those available Deepwater Horizon funds that you all received can be used for a wide range of projects, capital or otherwise. So we do have that latitude if we wanted to tap into that existing funding source that has not been depleted yet. And then one item, this quick response vehicle for $95,000, recall that is dependent on if we are awarded the SAFER grant. So it's possible that especially if the city's not awarded and does not move forward with that would not be an expenditure that we incur. But overall, that's what we have in place and proposed right now for the lost fund. Any questions on anything I've mentioned thus far?
I do. What is the status of the fire station shower reconstruction? Aren't we supposed to be getting that money from the contractor who built the building?
Yes, they've, if I may.
Yes.
The Public Works Director has been working with we had an on-site with the architect, and he was working with the engineers as well to see if they're planning on covering the damages that we've incurred. I don't know if Jamie's got an update. I'll ask him to step up, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, so the most recent conversation I had was they had met on site with the geotechnical and the structural engineer. They're forming a more detailed report, and then once they submit that report, then we can look at it further. So right now we just have some preliminary ideas, but nothing final yet. So No hard decisions have been decided.
Did they seem receptive to the fact that there is some sort of a
They
defect in that building, or?
They did note some things, but as far as suggestions, I don't want to really speak out of turn with what, we're going to do going forward, because that's still up in the air. But they have been receptive in communication and, some back and forth going forward. So there's some hope there that they at least help out, if not, there's some, still a chance with that.
And that SAFER grant, did we put in for that actually?
Yes, that's the 6 firefighters,
And that's my fear, that they're only gonna fund those 6 additional firefighters for 2 years, and then we have them forever thereafter, is that?
actually, it's 3 years, and if you want to have the
Oh, okay, yes,
elk
yeah.
come up,
I never could wrap my brain around that one.
no, that's fine.
Okay.
How's everybody doing? Can you hear me? All right, so we applied for the SAFER grant back in April for staffing for 6 additional firefighters, 2 per shift to staff the quick response vehicle. And how the SAFER grant normally works is the first year is funded at 75%, the second year 75%, and the third year is 35%. So you gradually grow into that transition of taking on that cost. But this year, with COVID, they've decided to fund it at 100% all 3 years. So, at the end of those 3 years, we need to decide if we're awarded the grant, what are we going to do with these 6 firefighters? Obviously, I don't want to hire them if we just have to fire them. So the hope is, in those 3 years, the county right now funds 1 paramedic per shift, per unit. So the hope is that at the end of the 3 years, during those 3 years, I can start to move towards that with the county and kind of let them know that 4th year we're hoping that they would get on board and fund one of the positions, and that way we would only be on the hook for 1. So that's how that would all work. No, they fund 3 and we would fund 3. Yes.
Okay.
So with the quick response vehicle, it's totally dependent on if we get this grant. It's a very difficult grant to get. I was speaking to the city manager and he mentioned it. I spoke to Mayor Hendricks and he mentioned a quick response, so that's where applying for this grant came from.
So the $95 here is, we gotta pay that up front?
The $95,000, that's for,
We can write at it,
that's for the vehicle itself.
so we have to buy the vehicle itself, and then the grant is that they will pay for the employees.
Yes.
3 years.
You can't use the grant for equipment, you can only use it for staffing. And you can't supplement your budget, your existing budget with.
We should just buy that thing, and whether we get additional, if we buy the quick response vehicle for $95,000, are we required to add additional firefighters?
If you want to use the unit, we would have to. Right now, the county has an agreement where NFPA 1710 states that if you have a fire engine or a ladder truck, you have to respond to all calls with 4 personnel. The Pinellas County Fire Chiefs Association got together and agreed upon that that's difficult to do with today's budget. So they dropped that to 3. Everybody agreed to that. It was before my time. And so we would have to keep a minimum of 3 on that ladder truck. And that's where the staffing for the quick response vehicle will come into play, because you can't send 1.
Right.
Now, if we were to take 1 off the ladder truck, ideally we would have the 4 on the ladder truck, 2 on the quick response vehicle in a perfect world. So
Do we have room for 2 more over there?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We plan to have
Like a building to go with this.
if the building's still standing, yes.
Okay.
But yeah, in a perfect world, we would like to keep our current staffing at 4 on the ladder truck and 2 on the quick response vehicle.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Probably gonna be 3 and.
yeah, or even 3 and 2. We could not do it with 2 and 2?
No.
Yeah, we just couldn't do it, and it's, if we're gonna do it, let's do it right or not do it at all, you know, you're looking into safety issues and whatnot once you start putting 2 guys on a ladder truck.
Right. No, that's not what I was trying to get.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know what fell in our lap.
Yeah, so, again, at the end of the day, well, if we are awarded that grant, if we're lucky enough to be awarded that, I still have to come in front of you guys and you all have to accept this grant. And at that point, I would, again, reiterate the plan where I have 3 years to get with Pinellas County EMS and say, hey, you know, we have this grant, it'd be awesome if you guys would take on this funding, and then I feel like I have a pretty good relationship with the county now, so I don't think it'd be a hard no. You know, they'd at least listen and take Madeira Beach into consideration now.
Clint, as I understand, a number of the other cities have actually had their quick response vehicle paid for by the county.
They have, yes, sir. I don't want to say every municipality, but most municipalities have received a second vehicle of some sort or some kind of apparatus from the county. We're one of the few that have not.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to talk to them about that, or kind of?
Yeah, it kind of ties into the budget actually, because the 2 jet skis out there were funded they were in the budget to be replaced this coming year, and I was through different avenues we were speaking to the county, and it was suggested to them that if we were to push back that $40,000 for the 2 jet skis, would the county get on board with matching our funds and getting us a rescue boat? The county actually said that's something that they could get behind. So that's why we pushed that funding off. We're going to Band-Aid those jet skis for another year and hopefully upgrade our level of service. So talks with the county, they've been positive in my short period of time here, or in this position.
Okay.
Chief, if I may, Mayor, have the county also has funded personnel too for quick response vehicles?
Yeah, absolutely, and that again, that's where the EMS funding comes in. Right now, they pay Madeira Beach for 1 paramedic per shift on that ladder truck, and that's all over the county. They do it for everybody. Some bigger municipalities that can absorb the hit, if they need it, they just do it. We can't. We don't have those kind of resources. So, yeah, the county, ideally, at the end of those 3 years, I would hope that I wouldn't do anything to damage our relationship, and they would get on board with that and fund that. And that way, at that point too, they're 3 personnel. They don't need all the initial costs for startup for new firefighters. So we're essentially paying salary and benefits for 1 on each shift, 3 total. County would fund the other 3, and that's the goal anyways.
Well,
Okay. Good goal.
Are we going to be running the firehouse up in the Reddingtons, the new ones being built?
Once the station is built, I'm sure that'll be a conversation to be had with Mayor Queen, Mayor Simon. I don't believe Mayor Simon's running again this November. I think he's going to hang it up. And Mayor Henderson in Reddington Shores. So right now, again, as you all know, we split that contract with Seminole and Madeira Beach, and my conversations with Mayor Queen, we haven't done anything to lose our part of it. You know, I don't, it's hard to say if we're going to be the sole entity up there.
Well, I'm just wondering, we cover up to what, 175th?
174th.
174th.
Yes, sir.
So that's a whole lot more than just Madeira Beach.
Yep, absolutely it is.
So,
and that's considered an EMS station. The county's not putting it there to put up a fire truck there. They're putting it there for the EMS coverage. That's where the void is. And so at that point, the county would fund that station. They would buy the unit to place in there. They would put the personnel in there. Whatever city or municipality or fire department was the entity to run that.
So do you know a schedule on that fire?
2022. Last time I spoke with Mayor Queen, the lift station is first and foremost. That's the whole reason why this is being built over there is because they have the room for the lift station, and so they figured they'd just do it all together. And, yeah, he said, it'll probably be complete at the end of 2022, so we still have some time.
So we've got a year to
Yes, sir.
see which way we're going, really.
Yep, absolutely. Any other questions?
No.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Chief.
Commission.
Well, I'm fine with moving some of these projects to the lost fund as, I mean, if we don't have to get into BP settlement, then that doesn't bother me either. Maybe we can use some of the BP to, go towards our new high and dry or something. I mean, rather than, but, I think these are good ideas.
Yep, we've definitely built up a lot of fund balance in the lost fund that, due to either projects that were just never in the lost fund, or if they were, like the beach improvement plan that just hasn't been spent yet, that can carry forward to the next year. And I think that's one of the items on slide.
The lost fund be used in the high dry project?
It could, according to statute, it would be for it's for infrastructure, and then it defines infrastructure. So infrastructure could be the acquisition or construction of a facility for a public purpose, and that public purpose could include general governmental activities. It also, or a public facility necessary to carry out governmental purposes, including but not limited to fire stations, general government office buildings, and animal shelters. So it's pretty wide-ranging. And that also includes vehicles, acquisition of vehicles, as long as it has a life expectancy of 5 years or greater. And so that can include a fire department vehicle, emergency medical service vehicle, sheriff's office vehicle, police department vehicle, or any other vehicle. So, and then the equipment also necessary to outfit the vehicle. So often in communities, I see purchases of fire trucks and police vehicles used with penny funds.
So easily the quick response vehicle could come out of that.
So the quick response would certainly qualify, and then
And I know they've done parking garages with lost fund dollars, maybe not the whole thing, but been a part of that. And a high and dry is really a parking garage for boats, so I don't see there being an issue there, do you?
Potentially, unless we want to have that in the marina fund. So that's something and that's actually an agenda item to discuss on we have a high and dry study that that's not included in the FY21 budget now, but we're looking at around $60,000 potentially to start as early as September. We could make it in October for the FY21 budget. And then there was deliberation internally about where to park that, and the thought was in the marina fund.
Andrew, what you talk about infrastructure. What about building like technology infrastructure? For example, I know that with our current contract with network people, we lease a lot of equipment. Could we go out and use the funds in here to go out and buy technology, or work a separate lease outside of that? Could this lost money be used for something like that, if for some reason one day we were to terminate our agreement with network people?
If it's just equipment, the equipment generally should be associated with a vehicle or a public facility. So I'd have to look at the statute to answer your question directly. My gut is I don't think so, but I can get back on that.
Okay, thanks. Mm-hmm.
What about the BP funds? Could that be used for computers?
Yes. BP funds would just be anything that you all decide, and you could do it passive resolution and state, anything operating or capital in nature, you could utilize those BP funds. Okay, any more questions on the lost fund, or you want to move on to sanitation? so Sanitation Fund, unrestricted net position is, $1,496,924. I put in the annual FY19 depreciation expense in FY19 was $102,000. I'll get to that momentarily is why that's important. Then these projected 9/30/20 results are straight off the actual 2020 projections that I provided you. So on the capital side, we've expended $479,595 to date. That's for 2 trucks, and then about $5,000 to replace a Packer body of a truck. But the bulk of that obviously is the purchase of 2 sanitation trucks. We've also had $232,750, I think at least dating back to the FY19 budget, that then was rolled forward into the FY20 budget, and that's for a storage building for sanitation trucks. However, we don't foresee a need at this point for that. Currently, we're leasing the space for the trucks across the Tom Stewart Causeway. That's in the Blue Barn, I think it's called. So we don't foresee a need to utilize that $232,750. We did have it in the FY20 budget. We do have an anticipated capital expenditure of $203,500. That's for a load and pack Broyhill machine. Currently, that is in the FY21 budget. We could accelerate that purchase and purchase it at the end of FY20, since we're not going to be utilizing that $232,000 for the storage building, and instead allocate those budgeted funds to the load and pack Broyhill machine. And
If I can.
Sure.
Just so you understand what that machine is, that's the one that Jamie had talked about to service the beach, the garbage cans, and it'll automatically pick up the cans and dump it into the hopper. And so with that comes a whole set of new garbage cans for the beach area, but it would help us keep the beach clean and make the job a little bit more mechanized.
Yep.
I got that right. Good.
So then the FY21 budget, we'll have revenues of $1,323,800, operating expenses of $1,283,400. Generally, I'd like to see revenues covering operating expenses, depreciation, and interest. We don't have any interest in the sanitation fund. Technically, we have a lease, and that's a discussion item, but that includes a principal and interest portion. But I've thrown that in operating, in the $1.28 million in operating expenses. But typically, that's what I'd like it to cover. We're a little short of that if we have depreciation hovering in the $100,000 range. So just a couple of discussion points that I wanted to throw out is just our current rates for refuse that we have currently in effect. And I know we've had some discussion in the last budget meeting about recycling costs. So wanted to maybe clear some confusion on that, because I think at first glance at the budget, the detailed budget for sanitation, you saw a revenue line item for recycling fees, maybe in the neighborhood of $38,000 to $40-something thousand, and then you saw a much higher expense for recycling. That's a little misleading. That's not exactly a fair representation of our revenues and our costs, because in 2015, in our last enactment of our rates, in the last update that we had added $2, I believe $2.83 for residential sanitation bills for that purpose, for recouping costs associated with recycling. So some of that recycling revenue, the only recycling in that recycling fee revenue line item relates to recouping our costs for condominiums, and that we recoup in whole. So our outsourced provider, which is Waste Connections, bills the city, and then the city turns around and bills those condominium units and buildings separately and recoups 100% of those costs. On the residential side, our provider, Waste Connections, charges $6 and I think 33 cents per residence, and then incorporating our fees is $2.83 to get to the total amount. So at least on the residential side, we are not recouping 100% of our costs. So that's a consideration to make, and I'll address any questions you all have around rates and recycling costs, but just to give you some perspective, the last rate increase that we had dates back to, I believe, 2015. They've been steady ever since. My overall goal for rates in the, like I said, in a fund, an enterprise fund, is to have revenue sufficient to meet operating expenses plus depreciation and interest. We're a little short of that in the FY20 budget, but I just wanted to clear up any maybe confusion that may be lingering on what our true revenues are relating to recycling and our outsourced service provider costs.
So, Andrew, excuse me, but, so what is our true cost on recycle? The true cost to the city?
The true cost to the city would be there's one line item for curbside recycling, and that's the $168,100 that we have for the FY21 budget. And so that's based on monthly bills from our provider, Waste Connections, which is based on maybe, this is from memory, maybe 1,955 homes at $6 and something cents, plus what they bill for the condominiums.
Okay, what about the recycling material disposal for $32,000? Is that another cost of recycling to the city? The one right below it?
Jamie, do you have insight on that?
Oh. I'm looking at page 66 of our packet, by the way.
Recycling material disposal. Is that what we get billed from?
There's a curbside recycling, $168,100, and then right below it.
We can pull that up in the accounting system and look at the detail and get that for you.
That's why.
Because it looks like it's $200,000 cost to the city to recycle, and then we get back $3,400 from the condominiums.
Right.
I think we should invest in some drop-off place where people can take their recycling or something other than yard pickup.
We did have a drop-off previously. The issue with it was that it would be contaminated with trash more so than recycling. So the majority of that material that was dropped off would be
I remember that.
landfill anyway. So ideally that's good. But
it's from the Pinellas County Solid Waste Management Department, so it's for garbage dumped. And I guess that's recyclables dumped. Looks like it's a monthly fee. And it's only, actual to date is only $13,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, what is our net cost to the city for recycling? So if it's $200,000, that's something we have to seriously take a look at, because I think a lot of what is picked up for recycle is in actuality going to the landfill or going to the incinerator.
Waste Connections will be available for the workshop meeting next week, so they'll be able to provide how much they're actually recycling and how much they're having contaminated in waste. So those questions will be answered then, and in the meantime, Andrew and I can get together and see if we can't get a tight number on what the actual cost is to date.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Well, is there any penalties for canceling the curbside recycling? Like day after tomorrow? I mean, should they?
I know we do have an agreement with
Yeah.
with Waste Connections. I'm not sure what the
Okay.
terms and duration are.
I think it's a 2-year agreement. You want to give it to me, I'll read through it while you go on.
That's just, the latest amendment.
Okay, I'll take a look while you.
There's
So, yeah,
no free internet for the whole city, you see?
Options obviously include
Yeah.
do nothing, eliminate your recycling program, or just charge your residential customers, because we're recouping 100% of our costs for condominiums. It's just on the residential customers. Back in 2015, that built-in
Right.
fee was $2.83, and per residential customer, Waste Connections is charging $6.33.
So,
Maybe we can do a polling of the city or do something on our website saying, would you be willing to pay $7 to recycle every month on your bill?
yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
well,
I mean, those who feel strongly about it, well, you know, and we'll just do
what it amounts to is if we continue to recycle, we're going to need to double the rates.
we're going to be what?
We'll almost have to double the rates.
Oh, yeah.
So,
No, there's a whole lot we can do with
yeah, that's a lot of money.
$200,000.
Yep.
Just for edification, I have to look for the successor agreement to this one. I think there was an actual new contract because we went out and we did an RFP, and so I think this is an amendment to the old contract, but I'll get those answers for the workshop meeting next week for you.
Okay.
The other discussion I had was the vehicle lease program, and so I think there was maybe some inquiries on the parameters around that. So I've accumulated some information on it. The city has an agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management for the lease of 8 vehicles. So 4 of those are in sanitation, and so sanitation pays its share of the total costs. From what I've gathered, it's based on a 60-month lease term. There's also a maintenance fee incorporated in the monthly lease payment to Enterprise. So there is a maintenance package that the city
Purchased.
and pays for on a monthly basis, and then that there's a maintenance plan presumably that the city would follow based on mileage and other things. And, you know, I guess we can talk about pros and cons of it. I think the program began in 2019, so we're already in year 2 and change. All the vehicles that were acquired were brand new at the time, 2019. So we've got a Chevy Equinox, Chevy Silverado, 2 more Chevy Silverados, Ford F-22, Ford F-250s. So we're talking about, those are the types of vehicles we're talking about. For sanitation, you know, the 2 trucks that were purchased outright for the $479,000. But the city entered into a vehicle lease program in 2019, and that's what it's looking like. And
when does that expire? Do we know? I mean, is this something we need to talk about now, or?
I think we've got 3 more years on it, and I'm wondering if maybe we should save that BP fund and purchase our own vehicles when this lease agreement is up.
Negotiate with Enterprise and buy those vehicles. I mean, it would cut that.
I mean, it comes down to a classic lease versus buy decision. And
Yeah.
I like the idea of hanging on to your vehicle for 7 to 10 years. I mean, you'll reap the financial benefit long term if we can keep it well maintained. Also, you don't incur the interest costs associated with the lease option. You know, on the other hand, if you like the idea of spreading your payments out over a period rather than you know, large acquisitions over time, you know, those are some of the advantages of the lease option. And I think probably what Enterprise sold on was their glorious maintenance package. And anytime you have an issue with your vehicle and you need your oil change, just bring it on in. I don't know all the ins and outs and the details of what that looks like. I can do more research, but And I can research about what that might look like if we wanted to exit the agreement, or for these 8 vehicles, we stick it out for the 5 years and then, entertain other options for future vehicles.
This agreement from the jump was awful. It was awfully thought out. It was terribly executed. We live in a town that's 2 miles long, okay? How many miles are we going to put on vehicles? We buy vehicles, they last forever. And we also, one of the highest paid people in the entire city is our city mechanic, because he's awesome, okay? He can Band-Aid everything up. We have people that have had trucks for 15, 20 years that have 20,000 miles on them, okay? Because it's 2 miles long. And we get 7,000 miles a year or 8,000 miles a year on I'll tell you what, I'm going to keep my cool, because this infuriates me that we ever even thought about this. Sanitation people have brand new trucks. Let's say that out loud. The sanitation department drives around in brand new trucks to put garbage in it. We can't get an old Chevy and drive around and pick up the beach and do. Andrew, and I'm just one voice up here, but if you can look into this to see how we can get out of this without losing our shirt on it, this just shows the type of fiscal irresponsibility that we've done here in the past. We need to get out of this as soon as possible and try to go back to a little bit of the normal way we used to run things, when we didn't do such outrageous, idiotic things to make it looked like we had fancy vehicles on the road. That's not what sanitation trucks are for, okay? So, that's just my recommendation, that we look for some out on this, because horrible, horrible idea, and the sooner we get out of it, the better we're going to look.
I agree, Commissioner Andrews, and I think we need to pursue that.
I'm happy to explore that and get back with you all what that might look like.
Yeah, thank you.
And I've leased a lot of cars and bought a lot of cars off of lease, so I know exactly. I don't know if you have much experience with that, but you can really negotiate there at the end, especially if you're buying the car that you've been leasing.
Right.
So if you need someone to look at something or some help, I'm happy to help us get out of that. But I agree. Let's pursue that.
Okay. No problem. Any other questions on sanitation, and move forward to stormwater? Kind of a similar story here on stormwater, providing you with unrestricted net position, 9/30/19, where we're looking at for 9/30/2020. Obviously, debt service is a big component of this, unlike stormwater. FY21, we're looking at revenues about $775,000, plus what we're going to be brought in from the general fund. Operating expenses, $503,200, and then debt service is the $1,511,700. Again, obviously, in an ideal situation, love to have a revenue source cover operating expenditures plus depreciation plus interest expense, but I know that's difficult. But again, if there's any discussion you wanted to have either now or in the future, or any takeaways or requests from me and exploring what we're charging in rates, or if you want to evaluate rates currently and what other communities are charging, I'm happy to explore further.
Is that debt service, is that the balloon note that's coming due on the $15 million?
Correct. Yep. That's going to be our debt service for FY21. Is in total is the $1,511,700. So this gives you an obvious depiction that this fund is not supportive on its own.
We're upside down.
And needs general fund assistance. So back to my original point, for the foreseeable future, we need our funding source for capital projects to be in the lost fund.
Well, I say absolutely see what other communities are charging. I don't know when the last time we had a rate increase, but
Yeah, so that was in 2015.
Okay.
And Jamie and I can explore other communities. We did get from Pinellas County a rate display for all communities, and not all are charging stormwater. Some might charge them as an assessment, and not on a utility bill. But they've ranged from Reddington Shores at $3 to Treasure Island at $26, and then it's somewhere in between Reddington Beach at $15, Largo at $13. So we've seen some variations, but we can refine that and come back with you all with more information on that.
What are we charging?
So it's $10 per unit, and so I think for what is right, $10 per unit is what we're at for
Okay.
on a monthly basis.
Got it.
Okay. Any other questions on that? If not, we can move forward to the building fund.
Real quick, that balloon loan for the debt service, is that just going to be a one-time thing for 2021? Or is every year do we anticipate paying back that much?
It's going to be about that going forward.
Okay.
Yep. As we pay down more principal, the principal will be a greater allocation, but expect to see around a similar total each year for debt service. Okay, so on the building fund, I just wanted to highlight this fund because we do have an Fy21 budget, a plan for a first floor city center build out that we've talked about in a previous meeting. That's going to come around $700,000. So in all, the building fund can absorb that. So we've got restricted fund balance, and it's restricted because of the nature of the building services. It has to be restricted for enforcement of the Florida Building Code. But building out office space for building department employees is an allowable and eligible expenditure in this fund. And so we've got existing fund balance of $714,000 as of last September, and then we're looking at revenues exceeding of $837,000, exceeding personnel operating expenses of $465. So we'll have even more fund balance to work with for the FY21 budget, and then we can continue to see more of the same in FY21 with revenues of $962,000, operating expenses of $580. So in terms of affordability, yes, this build-out cost can be absorbed by the building fund is what I just wanted to depict in this slide.
I think the newspaper reported that it was $775,000 to double the size of City Hall or something like that. But what was left out of that article was that we've already budgeted for that and the money is there. So just want to make that clear. People will quit emailing me and texting me on that.
I also just wanted to comment on something real quick. When we were here on July 22nd, our original revenue number for fiscal year 2021 was $650,000. So I'm very happy. Hold on.
Your question is what happened?
To show you, I'm very happy that we have adjusted it to $962,000 because I was like, hold on a second. Our projected revenues are $837,000, and I know Frank was sandbagging us over there, and he's wanting to do us at $650. But I was really, really happy to see that, guys. I mean, that's the kind of, $300,000 extra, and we're going to need it. So, but I like increases like that a lot, and I'm really super excited about the project that's going on downstairs there. I think that's going to be great. So, thanks, Frank. And you know what? Not that I should pat Frank on the back. I hate doing it, but. The revenue, I look back here a little bit, the revenue in 2017 for the building department was $377,000. 4 years later, we're looking at $962,000. So excellent job, Mr. DeSantis.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. What I would hope we can do also, since we're expanding that, and we will have the room to do it, is possibly look at putting on that service for the Reddingtons, if they're interested. Of course, we're talking a couple of years down the road to be able to get that on stream, but could be another revenue source for us.
Yep.
You're talking about the fire station?
No, I'm talking about for the building department.
Oh, the building department, I got you. Okay.
Do they? You probably don't know, but I was wondering if they have the county doing it now.
I can do some checking.
Okay.
Any other questions on building fund, or are we going to move to general fund? So by shifting a lot of those capital-related items over to the lost fund from the last budget you received, we've been able to significantly dwindle down our necessity to pull in reserves to balance the budget. In fact, to the tune of, and you can see that in your packet, in the budget summary. So you were looking at 90,850 of fund balance carryover utilized, which is much better than where we were at our previous meeting. So some highlights on general fund. Let me get there. So healthy unassigned fund balance, $6,364,966, and that's just unassigned. We also have various reserves, restricted or committed. For example, the BP monies for $383, that's not even included in that $6.3 million. Show you here our projected 9/30/20 results, and we can go through that in any detail you want. We've got all the account level detail behind that to show what makes up the revenues and the expenses that gets to those numbers. But those are the highlights there, just in total. And then for the FY21 budget, these are just the summary information for revenues, operating expenses, capital outlay, which might seem high at $463,600, but the vast majority of that are the Gulf Boulevard improvements. So for the undergrounding project, this can be end of Penny 3 and into Penny 4 money that the city will incur the cost, but then submit reimbursement to the county and get reimbursed for that. So it's a net wash to the city because we'll have the revenue offsetting the $373,000 in capital improvement.
Andrew, I got a quick question for you. For FY budget 21, operating expense, I think I know my answer, but that doesn't include the road project that we're projecting in FY 21 on, is it Marguerite and the two roads back in, it's Marguerite and
that's going to be
29th, I think.
Well, that's the one, the Johns Pass one's, I think, funded for the year after, but the one back over by you guys. Marguerite, okay.
There's 3 roads back there.
Right, I can't
remember
off the top of my head, I can't think of the names. Pruitt, Marguerite, and the other one. But that's in a separate line item, right? That's not a general fund operating expense. It's a.
If it would be, we talking like a resurfacing or a.
Well, yeah, I mean the stormwater. I mean it's the whole kind of.
Oh, the stormwater project.
Yeah.
That's area 3 and 5. Yeah, that's going to be in a different fund. So that's in the stormwater fund.
Stormwater fund. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you.
And that does remind me, in the stormwater fund, in the FY21 budget, we We've got Area 3, Area 5 for the design study, so our capital looks a little low in the FY21 budget that you see in the detailed budget, but that didn't include, subsequently it has, so in the next iteration you'll see it, is just the finishing out of that Crystal Island project. Total is about 12 million, of which about 2 million the county's picking up, including administrative fees that the city's recognizing as revenue for that. And so our FY21 projected capital expenditure will be about $6.9 million, and then 1.2 million will come from the county that will recognize as a capital contribution of revenue. So that's not reflected in your stormwater budget currently, but it will in the next iteration. We've already got it in there, but didn't make your packet. But that's what's going to close out the Crystal Island project, and then the Area 3, Area 5 it'll be in the design phase for FY21, and so all those are stormwater capital. Your transfers out of the general fund, that's $1,818,300. Some of that is for debt to the debt service fund, and then the biggest chunk is going to the stormwater fund to assist in its debt service payments. We've contemplated some personnel maneuvers as well. I know, in these times we want to be as lean as possible and not add to our workforce considerably. So we're looking at creative ways in filling positions of need, but not blowing up the operating budget in doing so. So within the HR and finance departments, we've contemplated filling the HR, which has been discussed as a need, both internally and amongst commission, that we need HR expertise in-house. So we're considering filling that in an outsourced capacity, and then our existing HR payroll manager, we can move to finance to manage payroll and benefits in the finance department, and also assume accounting duties in finance. And then we can move the administrative assistant that's currently in the finance department to the front desk coordinator, which will allow us to forego bringing in a brand new FTE to fill that position, and we can utilize the administrative assistant that we have in finance to fill that role, and also help with additional duties in finance. And so if we make those moves, we would be saving about $30,000, and we bring on that HR expertise into the city. That would also include keeping me on one more year if you want to do that. Up to you, but yes, all of those maneuvers would save. We're projecting around $30,000 if we do all these things. And if we do that, then a revised iteration of the budget would show $30,000 in net savings for personnel for finance and HR.
So that will keep us with 5 people in the finance department, other than you, correct?
Correct.
Do you need that many?
Well, we'd be moving one person out of finance and
Yeah, but we're replacing them immediately. We're taking out an administrative assistant and we're putting in someone to handle accounting duties. When a few short years ago we had 3 people in there. I look at the finance department and it's one of our bigger departments as far as cost, and not so much you. I mean, I think you were a bargain to take the place of the leader of that, but everyone else, I just want you to look at that.
Sure.
I think that, in my view, I don't see where this little city needs 5 employees, well, I guess 4 employees plus you to run them.
And the thought was we utilize some of those accounting team members to assist in accounting roles within other departments, especially where there's cash handling. So in recreation, so we'd have more of a presence in recreation, more of a presence at marina, and so it would allow us to expand.
Detail doesn't show that. I mean, now that you say that, that all starting to make sense to me.
Yeah.
But I know we have a completely separate HR department that we have funded with one full-time employee in it, and then I find out that in reality, that person is spending a lot of time in finance, which makes me think these numbers the departments aren't well, chiseled out.
Yeah, my answer is twofold. One, just, reiterating what I said, that this enables us to expand our horizons more and work with other departments in the accounting capacity, especially where there's a large amount of cash handling going on. Secondly, admittedly, our procedures are very manual intensive, so we're looking to incorporate technology solutions that will minimize that burden, both in a new cloud-based payroll solution that we're looking to move forward with, as well as implementing Munis to its fullest capacity, and incorporating the modules that will get us out of the paper-based, inefficient processes we're currently doing. So as that gets rolled out and implemented, and we see time savings, then that could be a good opportunity to take a hard look at what our existing duties are.
Okay.
But currently, everybody that is in their positions are busy.
Right. Yeah, no, and I can second that. I think that when I was here, I think there was 5 people in finance, and I like this a lot. Not just, the personnel and cost savings are just an icing on the cake. But I think what's good about it is, obviously I'm not speaking for Karen, but if she does move into this role, then we have somebody in finance doing HR and payroll that has HR experience. So that's great. And then I don't even know how much, how do you fill an HR position from the outside? Wouldn't that be somebody that would have to be internal?
No way. We need to put out an ad.
Oh, no, I'm just asking.
We would bring someone in that similar to what I'm doing. So it'd be someone that
hired gun
on site once a week. That's once or twice a week. That has regular office hours, and that
sounds good to me.
Yeah, and someone our employees can get a hold of via the phone at any time.
At any time, absolutely. So have a city email address, have a dedicated phone.
Yeah.
Call, email anytime, get immediate responses, and then physically on-site presence, once or twice a week. And that for a city of this size, we feel that could sufficiently meet the needs and also save the city money by not hiring a full-time HR director, which can be expensive.
Mm-hmm. Well, you could do it with what we have in this budget for HR, but.
Yep, that's what we'd be looking at, is make those moves, and we'd realize a $30,000 savings between those two departments. Okay, next slide. So currently, the budget that we have assumes a 0% increase, and so wanted to present what the impact on the budget would be if we were to move forward with COLA increases, or merit-based increases for staff at 1%, 2%, 3%. So that's what this looks like by fund. And wanted to provide that to you all, because the budget that you do have currently does not incorporate those increases. But if we were to make those any such increase, that's what it would look like at these percentage increments.
Now, does the budget that we currently have take into account that we may increase our millage rate to 2.875?
Your current budget has that millage rate of 2.875%.
Okay.
Mills, excuse me. Yep.
I would like to see our employees get a raise.
As would I. I think that, to me, that's the last thing that goes into the budget. I think once we drill this down, make the changes that we need to make, and we see where we're at, then we incorporate this. I'm all for it. I mean, I don't like, if we have the money in order to pay people, I think we pay them. It's not like these people, I mean, I know we did this salary survey and didn't utilize it correctly, but I do think we need to take a look at this, and these aren't, the majority of our employees are not considered overpaid by any stretch of anybody's imagination. So if we can do it, I'd love to do it, but I think we wait, and this is the last consideration we make. Let's get to the end, let's see where we're at, and then let's try to plug in what we can plug in, some sort of raise, be as generous as our means allow. How about that?
Yep.
Well, and maybe we even think about, depending on what happens on recycle, that's employees' raise right there.
Yeah.
You could use BP money for employee raises.
If I may, in the budget, because I know a number of you had mentioned to me, and I, of course, talked to Andrew about this, but our clerk's position was poorly paid in looking at it. So there's an increase already in the budget to cover, bringing her up into the mid-range of what she should be paid for her duties. I have to kick her out of the building at night sometimes.
Yeah,
I know,
definitely we need to
emails.
write that.
Yeah.
We need to get that right for Clara.
And that's been reflected in the budget that you have. It increases, has a salary increase for the city clerk.
Already in there, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Any other things I have? I did mention the Marina High and Dry study. We'll put that in for the next iteration. We'll fund that by the Marina Fund, unless there's objections. In the past, we've had city center improvements as a part of the budget, but it was really just repair and maintenance type activities to the city center. So I never understood why that was in capital in previous budgets. So there's nothing in there now. I talked to Jamie, and right now there's $36,000 in that, and we know we do have some rehab work that we do need to do. $36,000 may be a little light. We might want to bump that up to the 40s or up to $50,000 to cover everything. There was also some settlement issues, if you all are aware, in the firehouse, and this budget doesn't contemplate that because there's a lot of unknown variables. Are we going to do anything about it? At this point, we're thinking of, to my knowledge at least, keeping it under evaluation at this point, and if it worsens, taking action. But for now, kind of sitting back and waiting. So there's no budget expense in there for that. So right now we just have $36,000 for general building maintenance, and giving the number of maintenance items we have. $36,000 might be a little tough. Jamie, I don't know if you want to expand anything further.
Just a little quick clarification. That I know you didn't mean it that way, but we're not just sitting back and just waiting to see what happens. That's part of the detailed report that we're waiting to receive back from the engineer. So, pending that result, it could be something where it'd be something where the engineer and contractor would take over responsibility, or we could go down the line and see how much of an expense that would be, and that would just it really all determines on how the conversations go. So it's not like we're just sitting on our hands, just kind of hoping nothing else happens. So it's just like Andrew said, a lot of unknowns. So it's tough to budget for at this point without.
From a financial perspective, we're in waiting mode.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
But actions now. That's all the notes I have, and then I'll address any questions if you all have them on anything in the presentation or any of the detailed FY20 or FY21 documents I provided you, and then at the end we'll just talk about a potential next meeting.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, if I may. Andrew, yeah, I'm really confused on a couple of things as we're looking forward. And I'll go through this slowly, and I'll apologize if I go over time, but I think it really needs to be looked at because, you know, all of these budgets need to be balanced, right? So we got to make sure that when we're approving numbers that we're pretty sure that revenue-wise or expenditure-wise that these are reachable and these are good goals. So I want to take a look at page 15 real quick. First of all, I appreciate you doing this. I think this is something that we've never done in the past, doing an actual result look instead of trying to go back 3 years and trying to guess what. This is actually a really, really solid tool. So I want to kind of take it from there, but let's look at page 15. And if we look 2 lines from the bottom, let's look at the marina number, okay? This line at the bottom, it's 2 up from, obviously from the loss fund at the marina. It's saying that fiscal year, a revenue of $2.1 million, okay? You look at the next line, and it says an expenditure of $1.6 million and change, okay? So according to this page, what we're looking at is that the marina is going to have a net profit of $479,462, okay? Now, I mean, that's nearly $500,000 in profit for a marina that normally does about $100,000 in profit. So, you know, if this is the case, then I owe everybody an apology, because that's amazing. But I think before we start popping the bubbly here and running to the beach beacon and proclaiming me the biggest moron to ever sit on the dais, I think we need to take a little closer look at this. But those are the numbers we're starting with, right? 2.16 in revenue and 1.657, right? Is that fair? That's what we're looking at. Okay.
Figures, yes.
Okay. So let's look at page 34 then. If we look at page, everybody there? Let's look at page 34 and let's scroll down about a quarter way down to the first highlighted section. It's total for 405, 347, culture and recreation. If we look at that first line, okay, our revised budget is $2.57 million, okay? Now, I hope the board remembers, when we went through the whole COVID thing a few months back, Walter and Bob were sitting out here and they said, you know, this revised, the number was higher, our revenue number was supposed to be higher. But they came back after that and they said the 2.577 number was doable, okay? And I told them, and I don't know if you guys remember, but I told them the mid-year actual number that I'd seen said it looked like we were going to come in right around 2.1 million, okay? Well, if you look all the way to the end of that line, our projected revenue is 2.1 million, okay? And I'm not patting myself on the back, but I suggested this back 4 or 5 months ago, okay? But they stuck to their guns on that and said that because COVID and King of the Beach were canceled, if you guys remember all this, both of which occurred in the second half of the year, by the way, but they were pretty confident in the number. Now, you know, if you remember, going back a couple of years ago, we did 2.6 million at the marina. And last year we did 2.5 million, okay? Now we're doing 2.1 million, okay? That's $500,000 in revenue loss in 2 years, okay? And that's in actual money, not monopoly money, okay? But what we're looking at now is with $2.1 million, we have a sheet that's claiming that we have a net profit of $479,000. So I'm still trying to figure this out. So, and the way it's figured out is we've miraculously reduced spending. So if you look at the bottom line there, all the way down at the bottom, total 405, 9300 marina. Okay, let's scroll across. So your revised budget was 2.6 million. Okay, and remember, there's a revised budget. They sat in front of us and said that because of COVID, we needed some extra money, so that's the revised budget. Okay. So 3 months ago, they said they needed $2.6 million to run the marina. Look all the way to the end of that column. Apparently, it's only costing $1.68 million to run the marina. So somehow, some way, we saved $1 million. Now, I mean, that's great, but scroll back 3 lines. We have an encumbrance of $970,000, So before we go reporting that we're going to make $500,000 after losing $500,000 in revenue, I think we have to look at these things and be a little bit more and dig down into them a little bit. And Andrew, I'm not blaming you. This is, I mean, you just got here. So a lot of these numbers, you're probably looking at going, okay, wait a minute. Some of this doesn't make sense. But let's remember those numbers for a second. But now look at page 69. I hope I'm not going too fast. I'm trying to go as gently as I can here. Okay? So on page 69, let's make it easy. Just look at the bottom. All right? Remember the old trick? First three columns are actual, so don't even bother with the last two yet. So the actual revenues from the marina, 2017 were $2.4 million and change. Okay? 2018, $2.6 million. 2019, $2.5 million. Okay? The next column is the budget number for this year of almost 2.6 million, 2.586. Okay? Well, we now know the actual is going to come in around 2.1 million. Okay? But here's where it gets scary to me. Our actual number for fiscal year 2020, in 6 weeks from now when we come up with the number, is $2.1 million. Look at what we're budgeting for fiscal year 2021.
I know.
Nearly $2.9 million. Now, I know a lot of boats gassed up for the Trump boat parade the other day, but that's a significant jump and the high and dry isn't going to be built. And I mean, but we've got to have something to justify jumping in 1 year from 2.1 million to 2.9 million. Okay? The way I calculate it, that's an average of $241,000 a month. Okay? I'm pretty sure that this year we haven't had 1 month that surpassed $241,000. So my question to you guys and to Commissioner Douthert is how can we sit here and think that that number of almost $2.9 million is obtainable? Because if we don't think it's approachable, then it's irresponsible for us to approve a balanced budget with that number in there. Okay? I just got one more thing. Okay? Look at the last page. On page 70. Okay? Let's just head to the bottom line so we don't have to go through all the rigmarole here. We can always go back and look at more later. Okay? So the expenditure line, all the way down at the bottom, total marina fund. Expenditure line, 2017, $2.2 million. 2018, $2.5 million. 2019, $2.2 million. Okay? 2020, that's not the revised number, but 2020 it says nearly $2.5 million. However, what we're being told tonight is our actual expenditure is $1.681 million. Is our actual expenditure. Okay? Well, again, that would be great. I would be really excited. However, if we only spent $1.681 million by the end of this year, why in the world will we need $2.6 million next year? If we've reduced our costs that much, why the big jump? Why the big jump? I'm just confused, and math doesn't add up to me, and like I said, I'm a numbers nerd, so as I'm going through this, I'm going, wait a minute, all this stuff doesn't work. And it all goes to fuel purchases. That's where we're at. I mean, if you look at the fuel purchases, if you just look up on that last page again at 5270, about three quarters of the way down the page, fuel numbers, fuel purchase, 1.4 million, 1.6 million, 1.4 million. It says here 1.6 million. But if you actually look at our actuals for 2020, it's 900,000. Okay, well, if that's the case, that's great. Why do we need $1.6 million next year to buy fuel if we're only spending $900,000 this year? So, again, I don't mean to put anybody on the spot. And the director's not here, so I can't ask him. So I just don't want to publish something in the paper that says the marina made $476,000 and we can't justify the jump from one number to the next for next year. I just want to make sure that we tighten that up before we have this conversation again, because it just doesn't make any sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Andrews. I'm glad you're here to take a look at that because you know your numbers. Thanks. Andrew, have you got anything else for us?
No, to Commissioner Andrews' point, I mean, obviously it has a lot to do with fuel, so we'll try to get some clarification on discrepancies from 20 actual to 21 budget, and come back to you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
About anything?
Sure.
It's open discussion at this point.
Because I'm ready to go through the budgets here and ask questions on why some things went up, why some things went down.
Sure.
I'll be easy. I'll try to be quick. I'll go only on the big things.
Play nice, please.
You know, meticulously went through all the year-to-date expenditures and put them side by side with these budgets, and we have already spent more than what was predicted last year, and we didn't make the proper adjustment for this year, in my opinion, on a couple of things. And it's almost like we should just sit down and let me ask my questions to you. Because I hate to go page by page bringing these all. There's only about 2 department budgets in here that I don't have questions about. And I hate to keep this thing going past 8 o'clock.
Yeah, it's up to you how you want to sit. We can go through a couple, and then if you want to have a one-on-one
Commissioner, in my opinion, it helps us all. I mean, this is the most important exercise we really have to do all year. So, I have no problem sitting here going through it and talking about it, because I think it's important that we tie this up, because we don't want to, again,
right.
This is a year unlike any other, so we've got to make sure this budget's pretty tight. So I have no problem spending as much time as you want to go through it and everything on.
Well, one kind of general theme that I went through here and looked at was the group insurance. All right, example, city manager's office. We're going to add a person, right? Someone sitting up front to professionally answer the phone and get to know all the departments and be able to click on the draw, help all our residents and citizens to get to the right place. So I understand the 35 or 36% increase in salaries and wages there, because we're adding a person. But why would that cause the group insurance line to go up 75%? I was told, and let me know if I'm wrong, that each employee's, the city is going to pay $795.46 for each employee every month, and anything they want above that, any plan that they take higher than that, is out of their pocket. And if that's the case, I can't figure out some of this stuff. I don't know why that would be.
Sure. So your question is on the group insurance for FY21 budget of $53,900.
So, yes. How did it go from $30,000 to $53,000 when we just added one employee? It's under $10,000 for an employee for the year, right?
Yeah, and I'm not sure how the FY20 budget number was derived. I know we've already overspent that. If you look at your actual projection detail, we're already at 37 as of July and projecting out to 42,508. So it indicates to me that $30,000 was not a well-constructed figure. So the total amount per employee.
Well, at $53,900, that would be 6 employees. But we don't have 6 employees in the manager's office, city manager's office, right?
We've got 5, and the total for medical dental per year was $9,950, which is health of $795 and dental of $33.
But we're not paying that. We're only paying $795.46 per employee.
For health, and then you've got dental too of $33.76.
So we're paying their dental as well, So I was very crystal clear when I asked about this insurance, because I know it's coming up, and I was told something different the last time I sat in this chair, which does not make me happy. I mean, all right, let's continue with the city manager. We go down to 4,000, travel and training. We have $1,700, which is a huge decrease from last year. But we're already at like almost $9,000. So what, everyone's just going to stay put next year? Is that the idea, Mr. Daniels?
I think a lot of this, we were trying to take out a lot of the travel expenses. So we went to a brass, as much as we could decrease it. Obviously with Zoom meetings now and other trainings online, we're not sure how long we're going to be going with the COVID, but we basically wanted to try to reduce. I think travel and training out of most of the departments has been reduced, and we're just going to bite the bullet for a year.
The city manager's office now is based on 5 employees. The city manager, the informational.
CIO, yep.
Okay.
Right. And the executive secretary.
The assistant to the city manager, the clerk, or the assistant out front.
And then the IT professional that we
So that's what we need to talk about. If we hire an IT person, we got to get rid of we got to start. I don't want to hire an IT person and still pay network $250,000.
No, I think that's the plan, is to not have the network people and bring IT in-house. Is that what I'm...
Pretty much, and what we're researching is that, and then having the fail-safe, if we needed to get that expertise, we have somebody, but it definitely wouldn't cost the amount of money that we're paying. So
in this budget, we don't have network expenses at all?
I don't know. I have to research the network expenses, but
we have budget for some, but it's less, so I can look at that.
And again, we could have put that position in a number of different places. I just put it in the city manager's office because it'll be working hand in hand.
Right. No. I think that's where it goes, because we don't have an IT department.
Right.
And maybe we make one so that we can keep a better handle on it. And we put all the network, whatever we do get from network, all the leasing, everything. I mean, if we did it for HR with one person that's not even really doing we can do it for IT.
We can get
have an IT department, yep.
Almost everybody did a really good job, although I got to say, from the last time I looked at all these numbers, we had 15 departments in the general fund. 9 of them went up from what we discussed on July 22nd. 9 of those departments. I understand the additional people and I understand the city clerk's raise that needed to be done. I understand the Johns Pass inspection that we added. Some things I remember doing, but it seems like some of these, it looks like people increased their budgets to go right alongside with my tiny little increase in the millage rate. I was hoping that we would build something we could use to give people raises and get things done for the city, but it all seemed to have gotten absorbed again. We've got numbers that I think are just being plugged in. $2,000 for office supplies. We're already at $3,500 in the finance department. You know, I'm looking at page 48. I mean, I've got notes on every single page. I understand the clerks. I understand the city commission. Well, let's talk about the library. Are we going to keep 70,100 in there for now?
I would say we keep it in the budget. At least
I
it's
agree.
budgeted, and then if, you know, depending on what happens, then it just comes out, goes back into general funds.
I mean, even under Public Works, page 52, there is no code for professional services, 3100, yet we've already paid $2,681 out of that department for professional services. So if we don't even have the code there, and we're paying money to that code, I mean, we should budget for it. And this is what I looked at year-to-date versus what we have here. That was just one of the things that popped out. And also, I just have a little question mark. There's nothing under uniforms. Our public works people typically wear uniforms or these nice shirts that have our logo on it.
The uniform budgets are mostly out of Sanitation and Stormwater Fund, so they're not in the Public Works admin.
Okay.
So,
Oh, is that what this was? So,
yeah, so the Public Works is split into Public Works admin, sanitation, stormwater, and then also,
this is more the office?
correct.
So we've got $2,681 that we've spent for professional services, but it's nowhere on a budget for next year. Do you just not anticipate paying for any of that?
As far as the Public Works admin side of it, a lot of that was carried over from when the position was filled with an interim, and so a lot of the administrative stuff was handled by a consultant. That will now be shifted more towards me, more so than an outside consultant, so,
Lucky you.
yeah.
It looked like the bulk of it was a one-time charge from network people. It says computer system for Public Works, so I'm not sure exactly what that was, but it doesn't appear recurring.
That could have been when we hooked up the trailer.
11/27/19. Trailer hookup.
The trailer on board.
Yep.
And I also noticed you're under the firefighters. I don't know what FRS-regular class is. But
That's their retirement.
Okay, so we had nothing in it, the budget last year. We have nothing anticipated this year. Although last year, we did pay in $4,585.
I think there was a.
To date.
You need to come up to the mic.
FRS pension plan has regular class and special risk class. The special risk are the firefighters, and the regular are, say, the fire chief and the inspector. And so,
So why would we not pay anything into that category last year? Well, how can we have nothing budgeted for it, but we're paying it?
Karen, didn't we have one employee? Didn't we have one employee that was, through extenuating circumstance, was a regular employee FRS? So,
yeah,
fired, you know.
we have,
Yeah, 'cause they were already retired and came back, I think.
right, we have two. We had, and he's retiring this month, but we should have budgeted, it should have been
I
in,
mean, if we're gonna pay it
right, it should have been in there, because we, yeah,
October 1, we need to put something in there.
yeah.
My understanding is that's not needing to be budgeted in 21 because this person will not be in the budget in '21.
Is that correct?
As far as I know, he's retiring this month, so we won't be putting anything into it next year. Other regular employees who were grandfathered in to the system before the city stopped using the Florida retirement system for all employees, we had some grandfathered in employees, 3 of them that are still here, that don't work at the fire department, but they're FRS regular pension.
Okay.
But should have always.
Those will show up on someone else's.
And they might be
budget.
accounted for in their department, but there should have been some accounted for in the fire department, for sure. So we'll have some in regular for this coming year, but the one in fire will be leaving.
Okay.
While you're up there, do you want to cover the health or the group insurance?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I can't tell you figures exactly, but our group insurance covers health, dental, life insurance for all employees, accidental death and dismemberment, long-term disability, and workers' comp, I believe, is all part of that one group insurance figure.
Workers' comp is all a separate.
Is it on a separate part?
So,
Yeah.
if someone could get me the figure for what the city is contributing to each employee's insurance.
Sure.
Because that was not, I based a lot of my analysis on, okay, what are we paying here, blah, blah, and I was misled, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can.
Thank you.
I know the questions I knew about were health insurance, because that's the only discussion I've had with the Board of Commissioners on the insurance rates. So if I misled you by saying health insurance, but these are other plans that we offer as benefits.
I'm trying to plan ahead on how much money we're spending. I don't want you to pull out vision and pull out dental. If I say health insurance, I kind of mean that whole gamut.
Okay.
And I don't,
That was my mistake.
can't imagine even thinking to take those amounts out of that number. So, okay. I see a lot of things in here, but they happened the year before, so I'm going to excuse them.
I have one question. Linda, on community development, I'm assuming I know the answer to this, but professional services, is that what we're paid to Doolin Associates? Is that kind of what that number is? I see it.
Yes, that's the line item we use for the engineering services, and in the past, that is also the line item that had been used for planning services before you had a planner along with the director here.
Okay, so.
Our plan is we've been reorganizing too. The plan is to get where we're using Public Works more for certain portions of the engineering review, because that's what's normal.
Perfect. Perfect. Yep, that was my only question. I just wanted to make sure that that's what that line item was for. Because where are we at with that? Okay, so this year, okay, so the revised budget for this year for professional services was $200,000, not $164. And then we spent $85 so far, but it looks like we have an encumbrance of $96,473.
We also had the impact fee study in there.
Right. Okay, so that's where that came out of too? Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah, I was just checking what the number was. I'm sorry, it's not you, this is actually just more of a comment for the board. On page 51, I believe, and Clara just pointed this out to me, I believe that top line, computer support, that's the network services number. Is that right?
That sounds right, yeah. Let me verify in the general ledger detail, but yes, I believe so.
Well, we paid them a lot more than 170 this year.
Right. Well,
So
every year we
should
have,
be-
if you looked at the report, every year we've kind of gone a little more and more. And don't get me wrong, I mean, there's things that come up, but, but while we're looking at that too, 3,400 other contractual services, is that just, since it's non-departmental, I guess that could be anything, but, so I guess my point is if we were going to, and I understand why we're keeping it in the budget, but if we were going to talk about replacing network services and putting a position in the city manager's office, so this number would go away then? Because we've already embedded it in the city manager's budget?
Most of it would be. I think we're going to still need to have, depending on how we phase in the program, I think we're still going to have some system, might not necessarily be network people, but we'll have another vendor that will be there to shore up our IT department until we really get it up and running and get things going.
Okay. Well, and, you know, I'll renew, and I know we're talking about it at the workshop, but the city lasted without a PIO for, every year up until April of every city manager, but Mr. Evans and Mr. Daniels has not had that luxury of having a PIO. So if we're going to be cutting and budgeting things, that could take down the number in the city manager's office and create enough money to actually do the computer support correctly. So, but we'll talk about that at the workshop.
Yeah, that's why we talked about getting a 30-day out on that contract with the network people.
And I guess my last question is, the administrative services that we are charging some of the funds, how do we determine how much? If you know, somebody knows, because I mean, looks kind of nilly-willy to me.
And we can tighten that up and on the operating side, identify specific line items that are allocable. For now, we did a broader approach with the non-departmental and allocating based on percentages. As far as personnel goes, it's really the administrative time spent by those offices. And let me pull up the tab that provides that.
If it's based on time, then it makes some sense. But I mean, like
that's the majority.
Park went from 30,500 to 115,000 with a $500,000 budget.
Which one?
Archibald Park.
And
we're only charging 84,000. Well, they went from 45 to 84,000 on the Stormwater Fund, and they got a $3 million budget. So, is Archibald Park taking up more of our time than the Stormwater Fund? I would find that hard to believe.
I think we actually have some positions that are attached to the Archibald Fund because of the maintenance and the items that go on there. Is there anything additional you can address on that, Amy? Or Jay? Sorry. Thank you, Jay.
Hey, good evening. Okay, so if you look at the page 56, it's in the recreation budget. In FY 2019, we had a nice experiment where we shifted the weight of a couple of staff members back onto the recreation, into the recreation department, and back onto the general fund instead of the Archibald Fund. So we shifted them back in 2020, which lowered that back down to 317. So we have two employees that hit the Archibald Fund rather than the recreation department. And
well, why don't we have them under personnel? Why do we have them in administrative services?
Administrative service, the administrative services would be, that was a different.
That's the allocation, the overhead allocation, which is mainly the time of those departments, city manager, legal, HR, finance, city clerk, et cetera, that get allocated out to the other funds. And so we haven't, as I mentioned before,
There's a formula, so it struck me as weird how wildly different and how hugely increased they've become.
yes, I mean,
Except sanitation went down.
it's an improved science from what it was in the past, and then what it was in the past was a number that was derived probably many years ago and just had incremental increases since. So then we changed the methodology to say, well, let's evaluate this based on certain parameters. So again, to your point, we haven't done any time study where I've sat down with the city manager and said, all right, in a given day, how much effort do you contribute to sanitation versus Archibald? But we can try to at least refine it a little more from what we've done in the first sketch, and you would find that at it's on page 42, which shows how it's calculated. And again, we can take those, we can try to put some more justification around it for our next meeting in terms of those percentages.
And Commissioner Price, the key to that too, you know, and one of the benefits we have, like in recreation being in general fund,
Yeah.
and some of those other being in general fund, just like the lost fund, it's less of an impact on the general fund since Archibald essentially funds itself.
Well, yeah, because the recreation department doesn't have an administrative services line on it.
Right, yeah, we have our
You're
staff.
paying nothing.
Because that's a department in the general fund. So this is what the general fund is charging other funds.
Right, okay. I just didn't know if there was a rhyme or reason, because it just seemed to be crazy up and down, and I couldn't make sense of it. But I would like to see something. I mean, heck, the Marina Fund, 66,000 up to 216. You know, it just seems like a.
What page are you on?
Well, each individual. I just made this chart as I was going on. So for like the Marina Fund, it would have to be the back page. Administrative fees. So this current year, 2020, it's 66. Now, for the next budget, they're going to be hit with 216,000.
Yeah, Commissioner Price, actually, Andrew presented this to us at the first budget meeting, where he showed you exact numbers of percentage-wise of where he was allocating.
He just showed that.
Yeah, and he's only doing it with the funds, not with the general fund.
Right.
So, yeah.
It just didn't seem like it would warrant such a huge increase and huge decrease on some of these. But if they do, they do. If they were messed up the year before and now we're trying to rectify it, that's fine.
I think it was probably messed up for a few years, and this gave an actual bona fide process on coming up with those numbers versus whatever the process was previously.
Okay.
This is the one time where I'll let him use the term, this is government accounting, and you don't have to worry about it.
Trust me.
I won't then.
What?
That's all from me, folks.
Okay,
There's only 24 additional minutes, so.
Quick question on the Marina Fund, and I think we discussed this, at least I know I asked you about it, I think, Bob. That was gas pumps. I think we're replacing the gas pumps.
Yes.
I don't see it on here.
I think it's one of the capital items, capital projects, but do you have it in there?
$30,000.
Is it the 30,000?
Replacing the gas pumps?
Yeah.
Let me take a look.
Okay. Just being back and forth in the marina, I know we need a pay at the pump set up to where they put their credit card in, and
There's, in the Marina Fund, it's Marina replace gas, diesel, fuel pumps for $30,000. So that is in capital.
That is.
In capital.
I see it now.
Andrew, one last quick question while we're at the Marina Fund. I was just confused on one thing. On page 70, the very last line item, the other 5,900 depreciation expense. What is that? What's depreciating over at the Marina? I'm not certain. When I saw that before, I was trying to do the numbers and trying to plug that into something. Are you aware of what it is?
And you're looking at the actual?
So, yeah, well, I mean, it would be fiscal year, so there's nothing budgeted for fiscal year 2020 or 2021, but in fiscal year 2017 through 2019, it was 73,000, 149,000, 147,000.
Could that have been some vehicles, maybe?
Probably marina vehicles. I can look at and send the list of assets that are currently in service in marina, and those get depreciated. But we don't budget on a full accrual basis. We budget on a modified accrual basis for all funds, including enterprise funds. And so things like depreciation and are excluded.
Okay, so there are also, and now I'm glad you cleared up the administrative line, because now I know what that jump is. And this could be what this number is, where they put this in the debt and the depreciation expense. There used to be, the marina back in 2011 built the ship store, and at some point when it was built, the marina fund, they used the marina fund to pay back the city for the purchase or for the build out of the ship store. I know it was going on up until recently. I don't see it anywhere anymore, though. So I don't know what line item that would be. I kind of went through all these things and nothing seemed to make sense. Could that be what that number? I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe take a look at that. But there used to be a fee that the marina fund paid to the city, to the general fund.
There was a loan, I think.
Right. It was yeah. So they basically the city paid for it and the marina fund reimbursed it. And there was always an argument over it, how much, because it made the numbers look bad or whatever. But there was always an argument over it. But I'm just trying to figure out where that is, because I mean it went up. I mean, it was when I was still there, so 2017, 2018, somewhere in that time frame, and I don't see that line item anywhere unless that's what that depreciation number is. That seems like an awful lot, because I don't think the marina has that many vehicles.
No, I think
No, so
two, maybe.
Right. I don't think there could be $149,000 worth of depreciation for that. But if you could check into what it was, I just want to make sure that
I can answer that now. So that was an interfund loan between the general fund and the marina fund.
Okay.
So for budgeting purposes, all that's really happening, that's all, I apologize for the accounting jargon, but that's just a balance sheet transaction. That's just moving cash and reducing the interfund advance between the two funds. It's not really generating a revenue or expenditure out of that transaction, except the interest portion. So that's what I included in the marina fund budget is the interest associated with that repayment of principal on that interfund loan. Otherwise, the principal portion is just moving cash between the two funds and reducing the interfund advance. Okay,
but so we can make the assumption then, because there's nothing budgeted in 2020 or 2021, that loan is paid off?
No, there's still going to be principal. The interfund loan will still be paid down.
Okay.
It's just not an expenditure. That's not an expenditure to the marina fund. It's just a reduction of its interfund advance. The interest associated with that is an expenditure because it's going in between two funds.
Okay.
So the interest is what's getting budgeted. The principal is just, like I said, it's a balance sheet transaction, just moving cash between general fund and marina and reducing a liability in one fund.
Right. No, I got that part. But where is that on the balance sheet? Where is that on the budget sheet? So where's the payment that you're talking about that still exists?
Sure, let me pull that up. So that should be interest and said the account 7,200, interest $10,000.
Okay, so that's the ongoing interest payment. Okay.
I disagree with the previous treatment that the principal was, because it's not to an external party. This is just an interfund advance.
Gotcha.
That if there's an interest piece associated with it, that's a true expenditure to a fund. Otherwise, interfund advances and due froms shouldn't get reflected on a budget that reflects revenues and expenditures.
I agree with that. So I guess my point would be then, in 2020's budget, there's still a principal payment and an interest payment.
Yep.
2021, Is the principal gone?
There should still be a principal
Okay, so we're gonna tack something else on there.
payment, and then the 10,000 is the interest.
Okay, so we're,
And the-
so that line, that little blank is gonna have something in there at some point. In the principal line. So we just moved the number. So basically what you're saying is we moved the entire number that was in 5,900 to 7,100 and 7,200.
The interest piece. So the accounting entry.
There's also a principal payment in the debt service in this year's budget. In line 7,100,
right,
there's a debt service of $82,300.
And my contention, that should have been included in the 20 budget.
That's all right. I'm great with it. I just want to make sure that I know where we're at with it. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
So on the, I think it was the Archibald Fund, and we touched on it, but that increase, if I can find that page again, of 23%? Was that simply moving people around?
For the Archibald Fund, in personnel?
Yeah, let me find that page. Well, 22.75, the total fund, 23.75%, and, well, group insurance was a big increase, which I suspect may have been moving people into the Archibald Fund. Is that what happened on that, Jay?
It is because of that. Last year we had a part-timer and 2 full-timers in Archibald Fund. Now we have 3 full-timers in Archibald Fund, so the insurance cost for that person would go over to the Archibald Fund.
So it's not an addition of staff or anything like that. It's just moving people around.
Mm-hmm.
So
Part-timer back to rec and full-timer over there. Mm-hmm.
So that's same thing on administrative services. Okay. I just needed to clarify that for my own personal use. I think we talked about it before, but I wasn't clear on it. Anything else?
I think while you adjourn, I have a non-budget topic, if you can indulge me just for 5 minutes. We have an opportunity to put forward a name of a member from the Board of Commissioners to the Big C to be a representative for the Big C at the Tourist Development Council. The current person is coming off the board, and they are the ones that handle the bed tax dollars that come in for the county. So I think it's important. I've discussed it with the mayor that we have this, and the problem is we have to get everything turned in tomorrow. So if you all can give me a consensus, and then I will bring it on the agenda, and we'll do the official vote on the agenda for the September meeting. And basically ratifying the decision that you advised me of tonight. Have I confused you all? So, you're making a lot of money, considering the hours you put in. Now, there are 2 other people that have submitted. They need a minimum of 3 people to move forward with the process. So, then we just need to plug our candidate for that position. But I do have to get the information in tomorrow.
I'm willing to throw my hat in the ring.
I think that's an excellent choice.
Yeah, I don't have enough to do.
Do we have a consensus? Okay, I will, oh, you want to talk about the library? Sure. We do have a vacancy on the library board at the, oh, sorry, we didn't hear you. We're discussing the library board. There is, one of the vacancies comes due at the end of September. So obviously, if the decision of the commission is to do what the other communities have done as part of it, and having a member of the Board of Commissioners be on the library board, and then one resident appointee, if that's what you'd like to do, I would recommend let's forward.
Well, it's Mercy that's coming off. She was only appointed to fill out somebody else who left.
I think
she's a pretty good representative, but I do agree we should have somebody on there.
We've got to have somebody on the commission to be on that library board for however long that lasts.
When do we need to make that decision?
That decision you could make at the September meeting if you like.
Okay.
If you need some time. There's no rush. I don't have to turn it in tomorrow or anything, but.
I have that appointment at the September 9th meeting.
Okay.
Because it expires September the 30th.
Okay. But that would be nice, because then whatever meeting they do have, they would have a member of our Board of Commissioners there even during the month of September. So. Okay. I'm done.
All right.
Last thing for me is, if we want to have another budget workshop prior to the first public hearing, we can do so. And
I think we hashed it out pretty darn well.
Well, I think we have to, though. I mean, we got to talk about the marina stuff there, and we got a few more issues that we got to go through. But yeah, it doesn't have to be long. I think we just got to tie this up before we present it to the public. So.
Yeah, there's some things to amend from. We can pull out IT as its own department.
Yeah.
And put related expenses in that, provide more clarification on the interfund allocation, a couple of the miscellaneous items, and incorporating in the budget like the marina high and dry study. So, and then we can, incorporate a percentage increase to personnel, so you all can see what that would look like in the next budget iteration. So we can make those changes and get that to you for the next workshop. So you all tell me what works in terms of timing.
I know we do have a meeting coming up as in the first week in September. I can't remember if it was the first for the RFP results for the auditors selection committee, and I think it's the first week in September. I don't have my calendar book in front of me. Do you remember that date?
I don't see it at all.
I don't have it in my.
I don't recall the committee setting their next meeting.
Well, we had to set it as part of the RFP of when they're due in and when they're going to be open. So, and I remember when we had the discussion on the RFP, I thought I had mentioned that date. So we'll get back with you on that date, but I'm just throwing that out. Maybe we could do.
I'm showing a budget meeting on September 9th with the Pren's second millage rate.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the, on the budget, the millage rate, he wants to have it at 5:05 on September the 9th, and then following that will be at 5:45, the agenda setting meeting, and 6 o'clock, the regular meeting. That's the
Oh,
one.
yeah, I do see that, okay.
'cause I think the first of the month is like a Wednesday, so it comes pretty quick, or the second month.
Well, we need to know when Andrew thinks he can kind of put together everything we talked about for 3 hours.
Yeah, well,
Why don't we get back with you, and we'll get with the
Okay.
clerk, and we'll circulate some possibilities for you, and that way we don't keep you all here while we go through calendars.
yeah, why don't we just, at the workshop, we'll discuss it and get it scheduled.
Great.
How's that?
Yeah.
Okay, anything
Okay,
else?
who's going to sit with the attorney for the library negotiations? We just,
I would say, Commissioner Price. That's.
I will do this because I'm kind of into it and I know contracts. But next thing coming up, Commissioner Hodges is jumping on it, I'll tell you right now.
She's in charge of the Rotary Committee.
You don't have a Rotary Committee.
Oh, you didn't know?
All right, yeah, I'll do that. I mean, I've already read it.
Well,
The county one and then the little 2-page thing, and
I think that's probably a logical choice, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate.
I'm pretty much just going to go with what our attorney says, but at least we'll be able to bounce stuff around.
You understand the lingo anyhow.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I'm good with it.
All right, I'll
Great.
let Trask know.
No other business. This meeting is adjourned.
Oh, it is.
8:42.
Goodbye.